Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Al McCullough Township Council meeting. And tonight we're in Roseneath. The first time we've been here, I understand, since before COVID hit. So welcome, everyone. It's not a big room, and it's nice to see it full. I'll call this meeting to order at 6:01. We'll start off with a territorial land acknowledgement. Before our meeting gets underway, I would like to formally recognize the traditional keepers of this land, and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Al McCullough is located on the Mississaugan-Ashanindic territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississaugan-Ashanindic. The Township of Al McCullough respectfully acknowledges that the Mississaugan nations are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and the integrity for generations to come. Next, we'll have item 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Seeing none, we'll record that. Am I talking loud enough, Rhonda?
I believe so, yeah.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda as circulated. This is the agenda for Tuesday, May the 16th, 2023. Be resolved that the agenda for the regular council session of Tuesday, May 16th, 2023 be approved as circulated. Moved and seconded. Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Number 5, tonight we have a presentation by the CAO of the county, Jennifer Moore, and Matthew Natich is also going to be here tonight, and he's the accounting service manager and the deputy treasurer for Northumberland County. And this is going to, what they're going to talk to us tonight about is the Northumberland County budget for 2023. And Jennifer, nice to have you here.
It's been a while. So for those that are, I think everyone has a copy of the presentation or doing.
They do, yeah.
Check it. So we do this, we affectionately call this our roadshow. We have done this for a number of years now, where we make sure that the county comes out to each one of the number of municipalities. Usually about this time, after we've got our budget and everything approved for the year, and we'll talk about what's happening at the county. So I've done this a few times. This is Matt's first time, so be kind to Matt. He's filling in for Glenn, who's on vacation, but it's always fun to have new people come out and join in these presentations. So we will we'll start off. We've got the slides up, so we'll go to the next one. So for the agenda, as I said, I'll start with a bit of a look back on 2022 and give you a few highlights. There's some pictures over here. I can move this up. We'll start off with a look back at 2022, give some highlights around what some of our major accomplishments were. It's not an exhaustive list, but it gives you a bit of a flavor of what we want to do. I'll touch on some of the highlights for 2023 and what was in our budget, and then I'm going to turn it over to Matt. And because Glenn has prepped him so well, he is going to give the overview on the 2023 budget, and there's just a few points there. So just as a quick reminder, our vision is to bring together people, partnerships, and possibilities for a strong and vibrant Northumberland. This has been our vision for a little while, but we have just kicked off our update to our strategic plan, and we're going through that process right now. We have had a meeting with all of the senior staff and the councillors to do the first level of brainstorming. There is currently consultation open on the Joining Northumberland webpage, and we encourage everybody to provide your feedback there, as well as some other, there'll be some focus groups and that sort of thing happening over the next few weeks. So if you have the opportunity, we certainly encourage you to provide input into what will be our next 4-year strategic plan. Probably some of the same objectives as this one, and also some new stuff is what I would expect to see. So looking back to 2022, we'll actually get on 2 slides there. We'll go right to the economic prosperity and innovation. This area is one that, so we have our 4 key priorities. We have lots of work underway in this area. We advanced last year the development of housing builds that will deliver 84 new affordable units. Some of these projects you may be familiar with. One is the redevelopment of Elgin Park. That is in Coburg at Darcy and Elgin. We used to have 9 semi-detached buildings, so 18 units that will be replaced with 40 units of a mix of rent geared and for affordable rental. That's currently under construction. We're in the first phase. We will see tenants in phase 1 move in later this year, and phase 2 will be completed for next year. We'll have a little bit more on that one later. The second project is a 62 unit affordable building that is being built on Ontario Street, also in Coburg. It'll have a mix of affordability types as well. And that one is in partnership with Ontario Aboriginal Housing Services Organization and Habitat for Humanity. Other projects under this priority that we were working on last year, also with economic development, the Business Entrepreneurship Center was quite busy. Through their work, they helped to launch 73 new businesses, which create over 100 new local jobs. The Agri-Food Venture Center was also active with helping launch 6 new food businesses and the expansion of 12 more businesses at the food facility. And all of that also had partnerships with the Community Training and Development Center and looking at activities that were funded to help match employers with jobs. Looking at the priority of sustainable growth, here we kicked off the Northumberland Next, which was the update to our official plan last year. A few weeks ago, we did see some legislation proposed that may see some changes to what that will look like, but much of the background work and consultation has been very useful, and we'll see all of that put to good use as we continue to move through into 2023. Broadband connectivity. I know that this is of interest across the county. We did announce last year that we were receiving 45 million in funding. That is a combination of provincial and federal funding. The project itself will be well in excess of $100 million to see the entire county have fiber to the home across and to every home. So that's looking at all of the unserved and underserved. We're hoping that we'll see that construction start later this year, and it'll be about a 3-year build out starting in the east and moving across the county. So I guess that means Calderwood will be somewhere in the middle of that project.
Be able just to have a quick question. I don't want to.
Sure. If the chair will let you, I'm game.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lobo, to Jennifer. I just wanted to know that this is such a hot topic, the internet. And in fact, my daughter-in-law mentioned to me as she's struggling, she's over on St. Andrews Drive, somebody else down on the lake shore. So we are going to be getting this in the next 3 years.
So there are currently some small projects happening with various providers right now. Those are different pockets of funding, and they're mainly in the more built up areas where there's villages or hamlets. The project that the county has partnered with the private sector on will look for all that last mile to serve those that won't be served through all the other projects, because typically there just realistically isn't a business case for the private sector to provide those services. So that's what this will be doing, and it will take it to all of those homes, so they will have the same speeds as what people in more urban centers will have. So 2 years. Yeah, so there will be more information. There should be another announcement later this summer with have more information, more details on the timing. I don't have that exact information yet, but they'll start to communicate. And once they start into construction, they do look, as they say, they light it up as they go. So when it starts in the east, as they get a certain amount of fiber in the ground, and then they can activate it as they go. So the people in the west don't have to wait 3 years till the construction is complete. They will see it implemented over that time period as they do sections of the build out. Okay, so there'll be more to come on the exact timing, but we're looking at a wait with bated breath. like they wait for their internet to download. Also under this pillar, you can see this is where we talk about some of our construction that we have happening. some significant projects. Of course, many of us are watching the new Golden Plow Lodge in Northumberland County Archives and Museum being constructed. We've just passed the 50% completion milestone. So it's slated to open mid next year. It's 180 beds. We are currently at 151. And as well, the museum will be co-located, and it's currently down at the Coburg Library. We've also got, each year we do significant road work. Here we highlight the beginning the work, the construction on County Road 64. That's in Brighton. So there's some significant work there as a major project. There'll also be some planning it was done last year for the redevelopment of the Welcome intersection. Anyone that drives out in that area knows it's a bit of a strange intersection with that three-way stop. Big bridges that we worked on in 2022. We replaced the Loomis Bridge in Brighton. We completed rehab work on the Dartford Bridge in Trinity Hills, as well as continuing the design for the new Trent River crossing in Campbellford, and some essential repairs that have actually spilled over into this year because of some timing of parts. And then, of course, we have our general roads maintenance program that we do every year, including the tar and chip program that we partner with the lower tiers on. The pillar of thriving and inclusive communities. We did launch community paramedicine for those that were in long-term care and are waiting to get admitted, or those that are nearing that point in their health journey. That this is a fabulous program. And when my speaking notes were written, we had already had patient contact with over 3,200 residents in that time frame. So it's very much an in-demand program and very well received. The public have just thought it was a fabulous service, and really how they can keep residents in their homes longer and make them feel safe in their homes. This is a program that many other services across the province have had, and we had been lobbying to get the funding to offer it for quite some time. Regional transit, we've been working on that in a pilot program. It started last September, and it will continue through to this September. So we're, I guess, right around just past the halfway mark now. So for those that are looking to connect kind of through the county and along that 401 corridor, and then with the second stage, connecting the county into the Durham region for the GO transit. So we've certainly seen that ridership pick up throughout the pilot, and we'll see what those numbers reveal as we conclude it in the next few months. Other activities, a lot of work around the developing a strategy for the recruitment of ECEs. There's been a lot of attention to daycare spaces and availability. We know that there's now wait lists across the county, and one of the goals to alleviate that, of course, is to find ECEs to open up more spaces. And there's also been significant changes in funding with what we call the CWELC, which is the federal program, moving towards a $10 a day daycare. So a lot of activity has happened in daycare in 2022. Of course, homelessness has been another area where we've done significant work to improve how we work with many of our partners. We were finally granted access to what they call the HIFAS system. This is a system that allows us to track isn't really the right word, but to monitor the progress of those that are in the homelessness system, what supports they're seeking, what their needs are, what their acuity levels are, and monitor that and make sure that we can best reach out to them where they're at and offer the most appropriate services and look to bring those services into our community. So in 2023, we'll be onboarding that system. And then, of course, we were able to offer last year the warming room in Coburg once again, because we were able to secure the funding for that. Looking at the fourth pillar of leadership and change, we of course did significant advocacy work for the via rail train 651. To date, they have not reinstated that, but significant work there to make that happen. Advocated for the revision to the proposed federal electoral boundary, and the previous mayor, along with Chief Mowat, played a significant role in seeing those boundaries for Northumberland's purposes restored to what they are today. The original proposal had us losing part of your municipality as well as Alderville, and then the revised boundaries have included in the one federal riding, which of course is what we would like to see with one MP and one MPP. We also continue to work with the Ontario Health Team Northumberland. They have a number of priorities, things like our community paramedicine program that was instrumental in supporting that. as well as looking at their outreach, and we'll look to see if more of that outreach can happen. Currently, that outreach is happening in Colborne, and it's been a very successful program. And last year they completed their strategic plan, and we'll look to partner with them as they advance many of the initiatives in that. And then, of course, the last one on this list is around the county's people plan. And as many of us are in or our organizations struggling to attract and retain good staff. So looking at ways that we can encourage people to come join the county as employees, the great people that we have today. So with that, I'll flip we'll go 2 slides to the 2023 initiative slide. Some of these you'll notice are a continuation from our 2022 work. So one of those I've already mentioned is the commuter pilot program, expanding the Ontario Agri-Food Center, looking at a project there to expand the facility for the farmers market with part of that funding already secured, strengthen our understanding of local and Indigenous heritage. Our NCAM, we mentioned here the partnerships. When we move into the new facility, we're preparing for the first exhibit, which will be focused on Indigenous language. So that will be our inaugural exhibit. I'm very excited for that, as well as some other programs we're doing. We have a great relationship with the Early On program and offering a lot of Indigenous programming there as well, among other things. Our social services team have also continued to work with agencies in the community, looking at affordable housing programs and ways that we can increase supply. And as I mentioned, our Business Entrepreneurship Center continues to be quite active in what they're delivering for services. The GPL and NCAM rebuilds continues, as well as our housing projects. Like I said, Elgin Park will see part of the tenants move in this year, the balance next year. Ontario Street, we hope to scoring the RFPs for the construction of that project. So we hope a lot of the design work will get finished before the end of this year. The progress on the Trent River crossing, we had earlier this year some public information centers. They were very well attended, and we'll see that continue on. That development, if I can say so, it's actually shaping up to be a pretty bridge. So the bridge can be pretty, it's very inviting with views of the river, as well as lots of other modes of transportation. So walking and cycling capacity across the bridge and things like that to make sure that it's very well integrated into the community. And we will continue with the work on County Road 64. We're hoping this year we will launch the design as a Brighton Emergency Services base. You may be aware that earlier this year, the municipality of Brighton was able to come to an arrangement to secure land adjacent to their current municipal offices in a partnership with the Board of Education. So we'll look to use that as the location, and hopefully we'll be able to launch design work very shortly. And then some of you may also, or I'm sure you're aware, since it's in your community, we will be transitioning out of the recycling business. That is precipitated by changes to legislation at the provincial level. So we've known this is coming for a couple of years and made those decisions. So there is a conditional sale of the recycling plant, and we'll move through that transition this year, with everything being in place for the beginning of January next year. For residents, the program will remain the same for at least the first 2 years of that program. That's a commitment by the province and working with the producers as this moves to the producer responsibility. So we will see a few changes, but hopefully not at curbside. It will be that will be later down the line. Next up, we have, of course, welcoming aboard our new county council. It seems like they've already been around for a little while, and we're continuing with training at many of our council meetings and orientation. And I know that many of you participated in the member municipal orientation that we had a few weeks ago. Of course, as I mentioned at the outset of the presentation, we have our strategic plan. I encourage everyone to participate with your feedback. We will be doing a communications master plan that should get launched very shortly, and we'll have some information that will also be able to be partnered with the member municipalities with some of the information we'll gather. And we are also working on the social housing master plan. That's really looking at our current stock and how we want to move forward with those buildings. So those are going to be some of the main highlights for this year. And with that, I will turn it over to Matt to get the highlights on the finances.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to go over the last two slides here, the budget and our long-term financial plan. All of the information that I'm going to talk about is also on the two-page budget info that was noted at the beginning of the meeting. And it might be a little easier to see on those than on the screen. So firstly, on the top left, looking at the county's 2023 budget, you'll see that our total budget is just $13 million for the year. And then that's broken down in the pie chart between operating capital and our transfers to and from reserves. So the 2023 budget is significantly larger than our regular budget will normally be. This is a result of extraordinary non-recurring large capital projects, like the Golden Pond Lodge redevelopment. That's the main one that Jennifer's talked about already, as well as the Elgin Park housing project. So those represent a significant amount of money in the 2023 budget. Excuse me. Financing from the levy from tax, property taxes for this budget represents $68.1 million. This is a 6% increase after growth from the prior year levy. And we break this down between what we call our base levy, which is a 4.9% increase, our dedicated infrastructure levy, which is a 1.1% increase. And that's the breakdown that you see at the top right there. Moving down to the bar chart in the middle, this looks at how the county funds its services, excluding debt and reserves. So you can see this chart on the far left. A significant portion is sourced from grants and subsidies, which we get from the province. So this is approximately 40% of the money that we're looking at in this chart. And this is reflective of how the county is really a full service upper tier municipality with significant financing from the province for mandatory services. And when I say mandatory services, a lot of what we do are mandatory things, and we're talking about things like a long-term care home, paramedic services, social services, social housing, those types of things. The bar chart on the bottom of this slide shows how property taxes are allocated by the service area. So the blue bar on the far left, the largest, is for roads infrastructure. For roads, we actually don't get a lot of money from the province through grants and subsidies. So this is why a large chunk of our levy dollars goes towards those items. The next bar, the next largest bar there is social services, $12 million. And while we do receive a lot of grants and subsidies for social services and social housing, a lot of the programs have a cost sharing component. So there is actually a levy also involved in it. On the next slide, this page is on the back of the infographic page. So this focuses on the county's 10-year financial plan. And it's a snapshot of our anticipated capital investments between this year and 2032. So it just gives you an idea of what we're going to be spending money on in the long-term plan. So some of the items identified here are multi-year projects that are already underway. So what you're seeing for these would be the remaining project costs. So for the Golden Plow Lodge top middle there, 65 million, that's what's anticipated to be spent this year and going forward on that project. It's already underway, so we have had spending in prior years. There are also future year projects obviously included in the long-term model, such as the Templeford Bridge that Jennifer's talked about, community housing, bottom middle there, $56 million, includes the project underway. Elgin Park also includes amounts for the Ontario Street project that Jennifer talked about. And we also have some placeholders for further housing expansion in that number in future years. Then we also have more typical recurring type capital, such as our annual roads projects, fleet, etc., that you can see in the top left. Roads projects, $136 million. You can see that there's a significant amount of investment contemplated here, amounting to approximately 340 million over the next 10 years. And I would point out, in the current environment with inflation, we're seeing significant cost escalations, which are not helping, as I'm sure you all seen as well. The balance of the infographic that you have just displays our forecasted reserves and debt over the 10-year model. So that's all the information that I had. I'd be happy to take any questions.
I'll read the. I'll try to read the resolution first and then we'll open it up to questions. Be resolved, the council of the township of Allen will receive for information the presentation by Jennifer Latish, Building Service Manager, Deputy Treasurer, Northumberland County regarding the 2023 county budget. I've got a mover in a second for that. Moved by Councilor Ainsworth. And second by Deputy Mayor Schroeder. And we're going to open it up now for questions for either one of them. Go ahead, Mike.
To you, Mayor Lovell. So when I was reading through it, I didn't see anything on there for tourism. As far as, I mean, it's a big part of our community, and I'm sure some of the other ones too also. So I wonder your take on that and small businesses and lean management.
So for tourism, we do have a tourism manager, and they have a number of projects that they do work on throughout the year to promote the county as a whole. Some of our member municipalities do have their own tourism and some don't, depending on their size. So kind of the level of services and how they interact with those folks is adjusted accordingly. We have each year we acknowledge that tourism is one of our biggest sectors, that and agriculture. So there is that support. Some of that does spill over when you mention the small business support of the Business Entrepreneurship Center. That's also where some of our tourism sector businesses would receive support as well. So those two really do go hand in hand in what they do to support all the various tourism sector participants. So there's been, I'm not off the top of my head, I can't think of if they have special projects this year, not beyond their regular promotion, but they've had different educational opportunities to help some of our small tourism businesses specifically develop. They do their FAM tours with various writers or other members of the media that would come out and we would highlight a cross section of places to go across the county. So there's a number of different things that they do on a regular basis to support tourism. Most of it's moved to digital. We don't have a lot of handouts and pamphlets and those sorts of things anymore. We find that a lot more folks want to go online, and we can also track and monitor the success because you can monitor the hits on the sites and those sorts of things. So it really helps us collect some data for how our tourism dollars are being managed. If we just put an ad in the paper, you never really know who that's reached. So most of it has moved to digital. And then your final question was around lean management. So we have been doing a lot of work with staff for the actual lean philosophy and training. So that's your belt system. For those that are familiar with that, we have been working, like many organizations, with that pyramid to get more of the white and yellow belts and silver greens that are the experts. We've had a number of projects that we have done, and they're wide ranging. We revamped the inventory system in the garage. They've done some work in payroll and HR on how they can streamline their processes and reduce. So I guess finance is actually working on one right now with accounts payable and looking at what they can automate. So there's a number of different projects that we have put in with the formal lean management, as well as just, I think, having that general philosophy. So there's, I guess, what we call just do it is one of the tools that they use, where those are small changes that can be implemented by staff at any level, but also looking at tracking those so we understand where we are making changes and where we can find some streamlining. We also had the opportunity with the modernization money from the province over the last few years. I guess that started just before COVID, when the current Conservative government was first elected. They had pots of money for modernization. So we did some organizational reviews. We looked at some system implementation that we could use that money to kickstart some of the streamlining that we would like to see.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an opportunity to to promote like our trail systems for motorized, non-motorized. And, you know, through social media or advertising through the county on their posts and stuff. And I don't think we do enough of that even with our own technology. We talk about it a lot, trying to promote that. But, you know, trails for bicycling and horseback riding, kayaking, you know, swimming, ATVing, snowmobiling, you know. So I think we have a vast variety of stuff here in Northumberland County. And I don't think we promoted enough. But I had one more question. So with all the business and stuff looking for employees, is there anything in revamping the, let's say, the welfare system? You know, to try to get people out to work. I mean, I don't think what's happening today is what it was set up for. And I wondered if there was anything there happening, maybe revamp that.
That system is actually managed by the province, so we administer it, but we don't set the parameters for what payments are made. I think that what we're seeing as far as case numbers, our case numbers did hit an exceptional low during COVID because there was federal payments and other sorts of supports available. We've seen our caseload rebound somewhat, but the caseload across Northumberland County is at one of our lowest points we've seen, aside from at the bottom of COVID. So many municipalities have seen it come up higher. We're actually at a very low level. The province did change some of their philosophies on how they look at the social services system. So a few years ago, but 3 or 4 years ago now, they moved employment services out of the county as a service manager. It's now administered by large regional providers here. It's delivered by Fleming College. So what happens is as clients come into us, they look at what they're, whether or not they're ready and employment ready. And those assessments are done to determine how prepared they are to re-enter the workforce. If they are at that point, then they actually are connected with the employment supports systems that Fleming offers. To be quite frank, many of the folks that are currently in receipt of OW are not employment ready for a variety of reasons, whether it be their personal health and wellness status, whether it be complex family issues, whether it be any other variety of challenges that they're experiencing in their life. The OW program and various other supports really look to get them to a stability in their life, and that's what the caseworkers work with them on. And we're really performing quite well in that those that are job ready are exited through the program and helped through Fleming. I think those that are currently on the system, most of them do require the supports that they're receiving. Currently, what we see a bigger issue and barriers to workers is not that system. It's really most folks say they can't afford to live in our community because of the challenges they're facing with housing prices. And if we look at our living wage, right now, the living wage in Northumberland is comparable to Durham. And our housing has actually, in some segments, outpaced Durham at this point. So that's really one of the biggest barriers that we see. The other challenge is looking at post-secondary and how we can attract workforce through skills development. Without a post-secondary bricks and mortar institution, we often see that our youth leave because they can't afford to rent or own a home, and they've gone off to university and they find work and away they go from there. So looking at things like the Fleming campus, the small Fleming campus that we have, and the small Loyalist campus that has recently been launched in Port Hope, we hope some of those things will also help prepare folks for the workforce, or so that folks can come here, get trained, and stay here, and they're able to work that way and partner with some of the employers. So there's a number of dynamics going on there. The numbers on Ontario Works are quite small.
Any other questions from council? Great.
To you, your worship, maybe either to Matthew or Jennifer. Can you expand a little bit on the works facility? You're talking about $20 million over the next 10 years. Is that, are we building something new, or are you just?
So what that, speaking of, lean management, looking at how we deliver public works, and we currently have our main public works yard in Coburg. The secondary work shard is in Morganton, with, we have a couple of sand domes and some of those are partnerships, some of them are our own. So, this is actually looking at consolidated facilities to move those into one consolidated location, as well as looking at the services that are currently in some of our county buildings so that we can have the engineers co-located with the frontline staff, so that we can look at the services that we offer for waste management and have them co-located in that space as well. Looking at ultimately some of our community recycling centers like Udley, that has the capacity there. If anybody has been there, the lineups, they spill it onto the road. There's especially now with the all of the diversion programs, you need a lot more space so you can have all your different bins. So probably moving that. So it will be all of the public works facilities, looking at community recycling center, probably from Udley, looking to locate this in a more central part of the county. We don't have property or anything yet. That's part of what this study is about, but I'm looking at a more centralized location. And then all workers could work out of that one site. Equipment would be based in the one site. So there'd be efficiencies around supervision or efficiencies around equipment management. So right now you kind of have one in the south, a piece in the north that could be co-located in another one site, as well as having all the repairs and maintenance done of the facility, and more centrally located for our facilities department, because as we're doing more housing, we already have buildings throughout the county, but as we look at how they have their tools and equipment centrally, how we dispatch them around the county for the services that they provide to our tenanted buildings. That's really what this is about, is getting that into one facility. So there'll be the upfront cost of building a new structure, but then there'll be what happens with the old structures, and then there'll also be the ongoing things from an operations perspective.
Yes.
This is very informative and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor?
Well, I had a question about the internet, which everybody seems to be asking me about these days. But it's good to have everything detailed like this. So, I know it's not a real in-depth, it's kind of like a high view, but it kind of gives us an idea of what you're doing with the money.
We have a budget binder about this big. If you want to see.
Very good, thank you.
Jennifer, thank you very much for taking your time. We always enjoy your roadshow. And Matt, you're getting good at it. And we'll get back here. I'm sure. When Glenn hears how much fun you've had, every time.
I'm always terrible. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yes. We got to move on. Reading of the motion. That's Gary. Thanks again. Okay, next we're going to move on to item 6, which is a delegation. Request for delegation received by Mr. Parkman, owner of St. Anne's Spa. And it's an update on St. Anne's expansion and importance of tourism in Alma Township. Where do you want us to go? Up here or back, or where do you want to go?
Yolanda told me to stand in that corner, but I think I can stand by the screen so I can point to it.
Sure, yeah, just over maybe 5 minutes.
There is one seat there, something.
So we do have a couple more chairs over there, if you can pull them in here.
Chair here.
We have some in.
We've got some in the foyer.
I did warn that when I asked ChatGPT to create this presentation, the bot wouldn't spell it. So my presentation was longer than it would have been if real intelligence had developed it, but artificial intelligence, you just can't turn it off. So I don't even know how long it's going to be.
There is
Could
a
be
seat up here.
We'll ask council.
It's still scrolling on my screen. I wasn't sure if ChatGPT would resonate with worship.
members of council, members of staff, and fellow ratepayers. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight about the development plans for St. Anne's Spa. The last time I appeared before council, that being the previous council, I have forcefully raised my concerns about the short-term rental bylaw that was passed in May 2022. One of the members of council, who is not on the current council, told me that he didn't like my tone. The deputy mayor, however, commended me on my remarks and assured me that I would be a valuable resource for council to consult with as they consider the potential for tourism in our township. I'm still waiting for that call. But please know that I'm happy to help provide insight into how to grow a tourism business in this province and in this municipality should the need arise. Tonight, I hope you will find that my tone is more appropriate as I speak to you about what has been the passion of my life, the lives of my employees and my family's lives for the past 42 years during Oklahoma. For the record, I still have some grave concerns about the SCR bylaw and about council support for tourism in general. I have been accused of having a conflict of interest when it comes to this topic. Perhaps I do, but I can assure you that nothing, in my mind, nothing could be further from the truth. Over the next few minutes or hours, I hope to demonstrate my only interest is in fulfilling the engraving for those of you who have been to St. Anne's that has been carved into the granite above the main entrance, given to us by a prophet named J. Rawlings, who said, "I have created this beautiful garden where I will send many people to be healed." So with that, I'll go to the next slide. Hopefully, this is a quick little 1-minute video. I'm sure how much volume you have, but so I will spare you the history from before 1927. But just to put things in context, a family named Blaffer, who made their money in the oil business, came up from Texas to visit friends in Ontario in the late 20s. And they came upon that view, many of you have seen from the hills, the rolling drumlins of Northumberland, and fell in love with what was a Massey house, later owned by the James family. They bought it on the spot and undertook a major renovation and expansion so that they could use the property to entertain their friends from Texas. Milton Avery, a famous American artist, painted there. And many of the folks my age and older in this township have lots of stories to tell about when the Blaffers were living there and during the period after the Blaffers left before we owned it. I think there's some people in this room who actually jumped into the pool while the house was vacant and maybe had a few beers that were on. Mrs. Blaffer was notoriously eccentric and certainly made that place a place to remember. That's what it would look like when the Blaffers were renovating it. The original schoolhouse on the top of Academy Hill Road that burned down, some of the stones were gathered from there to put on the additions. This was the original Massey home. Everything else was added by the Blaffers. And they also apparently went around to farms that had run down old barns and collected their stones. And that's what then became known as the Grafton Castle. In 1981, my mom and dad purchased the property as a retirement project. Although my dad continued to commit to Don Mills and Eglinton for a number of years. He also brought with him about 100 head of Charlotte cattle and wanted to use the extra land to grow his herd of prize Charlotte cattle. From 1981 to 1983, I came home and spent my time doing extensive and, in my father's words, expensive renovations. It cost more to renovate St. Anne's than it did in that 2-year period than it did to buy it. It was literally falling down around me as we renovated. In 1985, my mom, Nancy, my brother John and his wife Nancy, who are the current owners of Western Springs, started a 2-room bed and breakfast in the east wing of the building to help offset the cost of renovations. My dad liked to take advantage of the tax system to write off some of his IBM income, but apparently I went too far with the renovations and even outweighed the benefit of the tax write-offs. By 1991, the B&B had grown to 7 rooms, 5 part-time employees, and $200,000 a year in revenue. In 1991, I made a deal with my dad to take over the bed and breakfast. In an effort to increase occupancy, I introduced an artist in residence program and I added meals, spa treatments, and fitness classes during the 90s. My initial effort to turn the bed and breakfast around failed spectacularly. I'm not going to put this in print, but for a year I collected welfare in Coburg because I had barely no income. I'm ashamed to say that. Although I did pay back the welfare system before, once I started to make money. By the mid-1990s, I'd converted all 10 bedrooms to the guest rooms and started to run it as an inn and spa. Technically, I guess it became a short-term rental as the whole house was occupied by guests, as opposed to a bed and breakfast. And then things started to turn around as annual revenue started to double year over year. Fast forward 33 years, St. Anne's now is a $25 million health and wellness destination spa, the largest and pretty much the only one in Canada. We provide jobs for 300 people with a payroll in excess of $10 million. Our property taxes alone contributed $180,000 to the budget of this township. 43,000 guests of St. Anne's visit Alma Coleman each year. And we know that many of our 18,000 day spa guests and some of our overnight guests spend their stay at a local B&B or short-term rental without incident. Many guests of St. Anne's have made Alma Coleman their home by purchasing them. Most noteworthy are the family that created the Degrassi franchise, purchased property here and have done amazing things with it. Next slide, please.
No, that is.
Thank you. Over time, I've acquired 8 adjacent houses and renovated them to add capacity to the main building for a number of reasons that I won't get into tonight. We call those our spa cottages. They've become very popular with groups of 6 to 8 women. We also offer them private chef meals at the spa cottages. We opened St. Anne's Gluten-Free Bakery to support the St. Anne's Kitchen. We launched the St. Anne's Skin Nourishment product line, an all-natural skincare line. And we launched St. Anne's Farms to supply grass-fed free-range beef to the St. Anne's Kitchen. So we have about 60 head of steers on the property. Plant a seed and you'll have a forest. So this is just a snapshot of some of the things that you can get at the St. Anne's Bakery. I was going to bring some samples tonight, but I didn't really want to get into that whole trying to brag council in the first part. This is just a small part of the product line that we introduced. A lot of the products are made with plants that are grown on the property. We have rose gardens. Too many plants for me to memorize, but It's a pretty popular line and it's distributed throughout Ontario. We've also planted 30,000 trees in the time that we've been. So to get into the expansion plans, in 2000, I had consultants to start a public consultation process on plans that would remove the agricultural designation on this property. For those of you who farm in Alma-Colman, some people like to say this is great agricultural land. Any day you want to come and pick rocks on my farm, welcome to it. This we grow rocks like nobody else. In any case, for us to move forward with our plans, we had to have that agricultural designation removed. We amended the official plan to allow for 250 room spa village that started with 65 rooms in the northeast corner, which set the stage for rezonings through the removal of holding provisions as each phase of the master plan was built. The plan was also to redevelop the bottling plant into a day spa facility, but that didn't happen due to a financial crisis in 2006. This was the original master plan. So this is our 500 acres, basically. Massey Road, Academy Hill Road. Most of the growth has been concentrated on this 30-acre site at the top here. So that's where the main inn is. But we also have surrounding this a bunch of houses that have been converted to accommodation as well. The original master plan called for 5 village type nodes to be built on the property to get to the 250 room spa village. The idea was that it wouldn't be like one massive block of rooms. It would be scattered over 500 acres, so you would never feel like you were staying in a mega resort. The landscape architect that drafted this plan also threw a golf course in the bottom corner here. That's what they like to do, drawing golf courses, but that's really not part of our plan. This isn't a great resolution, so we'll move to the next slide.
Excuse me, Jim, I've got about 12 minutes and I have to get permission from council to, if they'd like to continue on further. So can I get a move in a second?
Can I ask a question or you just need to move forward to discussion?
So I'm gonna, what, this?
I just wondered how.
Yeah.
So you want to go ahead then, Mike, you say move, seconder? Greg? All in favor? Motion's carried. Go ahead, Jim.
This was the original site plan, which is, you can't see it, but Bill Finley's signature down on the bottom here. This is around 2003. So this was specific to the 30 acres at the top, that allowed for 65 guest rooms and all the amenities that would go along with that. Parking and whatnot. There's the main inn, and there were plans to build to the east and to the west additional guest accommodation. And there was also a plan to build a second inn and spa on this property that was sort of an Irish themed manor house that would get us closer to that 65 room capacity. A lot of that didn't go forward for a number of reasons, the biggest of which is there is very little support in terms of bank financing for tourism in Ontario. So all of this had to be funded from operations. Everything we've done has been funded from operations for the most part. Banks are better now, but for a long time they weren't so good. This is the current master plan that we're working on. And I thought it might be a little hard to read on the screen. I printed out copies. Thank you.
You want one?
Now,
Oh, did you want that? Well, I need one. Because I'm scared.
the orientation of this master plan has changed from the original that I showed you. So this is Massey Road. This is Academy Hill Road. These are the future nodes. These things here, all connected by walking trails and our own internal road. And then most of the rest of it is orchards, and we've already started building a tiered nut farm on this area here that overlooks one of the valleys on the property to grow, what's Nutella made from? The rose garden is
No, there'd be a quiz.
down here. Grapevines, we've got honeybees, so the idea is that not only is this a great place to stay, but it's a great place to explore nature, and as I said earlier, it doesn't feel like you're on a great big mega resort. It feels like you're out in the country and you've got your special spot. So, this isn't anything that, has ever been approved. It was kind of the inspiration for the changes that were made to the official plan back in 2003. So if you want to look at the official, your official plan and make some sense of it, this is a good document to reference. We're currently working with Jennifer Current on a revised site plan for this 30 acres up at the top northeast corner. So here you see St. Anne's. This is a village, spa cottage village that we're that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Instead of the second inn and spa, we're proposing a day spa facility to replace the day spa facility that was supposed to go in the CGC bottling plant. Think of what's going on in Whitby, the Nordic Spa or Spa Nordique. That's the concept there. It's more of a day experience where you use the baths, you have a few treatments, you have a few meals, and then you go home for the night. So I think that's very close to the end of the process with Jennifer. The inspiration for this village concept, my dad lived in Ireland for 12 years, and visiting him in Ireland, I don't know how many people have had the opportunity to go to Ireland or some of the old English villages when you're winding along some narrow country road and you come across these beautiful little settlements that have smoke from peat kind of hanging over the village, from the burning of peat hanging over the village. That's kind of the inspiration for the next slide, which is the spa cottage village that we want to build, which will basically bring all of the spa cottages that exist in the surrounding houses closer to the main inn. So again, zooming in on the main inn, we have all our new hydrotherapy features here, and this is the village streetscape going down to an existing farmhouse, tying into a apothecary. Here, so on our plan, looking down the street, this is what you see, every single story, high pitched roof cottages with a nice tight little street for walking. And picture lots of people in my bathroom going to the hill. This is the day spa facility. Now, I've given you fairly detailed plans of this because this is fairly unique. Yeah, it's pretty illegible, but I think when you see that, you'll see a better representation of the building. So the building itself is where the spa treatments take place, reception, meals, change rooms, and then out front, you know, a whole bunch of different temperature pools, steam rooms, full plunge pools, all that kind of thing. So that will put what Coleman in direct competition with the Nordic spa that's been built in Whitby, and also the Nordic spa that has been contemplated at Ontario Post. Ontario is way behind other jurisdictions in terms of building these day spa kind of experiences. There are 13 of these in Quebec with half the population, and Ontario has about 4 of them either built or in the works. And of course, if you go to Europe or Asia, the valves have been there for years and are everywhere. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of the artists or of what the architect is recommending. There's one floor for treatment room, one floor for reception and dining, and then there's a floor of 10 VIP rooms for people, maybe a group of one who want to not use the common spaces for changing and whatnot, want a little bit more space to relax. So that's the top floor of the building. This is the artist's rendering of the pools. Again, it should be in that document that we have, but there are a number of hot tubs, pools, lawn pools, water fountains, steam rooms. So in closing, what is the economic impact of this kind of project? Good quality jobs. With 300 people who make a living here. Wages ranging from $18 up to $50 an hour for staff, executive staff. Salary, good salaries. We attract a lot of people to this area. We pay taxes to all levels of government. Those 300 employees are spending that $10 million in wages in our community. So that money is coming back into not necessarily all the Coleman, but definitely this greater catchment area that we all live in. The incremental impact of 43,000 visitors on restaurants, suppliers, gas stations, liquor stores, retail stores, real estate sales, short-term rentals who provide overnight stays for our 18,000 baseball guests are definitely in that letter you sent out, Madam Clerk. I had a number of people call me and say, we'd love to find out more about your group because we regularly entertain guests from St. Anne's. And I know the same applies to Whispering Springs. Finally, I just want to say that, and I know this isn't about short-term rentals tonight, but I really, as a business owner, it started with a little seed of an idea. Being a home in this community that could provide a retirement for my parents and a farm for some cattle. Look what has come of it. Had the kind of red tape and bylaw that's been contemplated by this township been in place, none of this would happen. I can absolutely say none of this would have happened. It would have happened somewhere else, but it wouldn't have happened here. As I've been involved in this STR discussion, I have to carefully think, is this the best place to build a $30 million baseball facility that depends on short-term rentals for people who want to stay in the area? I was approached by your colleague, Eric Cleveland, about property in Colbert that's available. Colbert has a completely different view of short-term rentals and of tourism in general. If you look at the activities that goes on in Colbert, it's phenomenal. Relatively. I mean, we've got to walk the talk when it comes to tourism. You haven't heard from me for years. I came to council in 2002, 2003, worked with council to integrate this plan into the official plan. Council staff, Jennifer was working for Bob Clark at the time, helped us make this massive project make sense in the context of what was then an agri-based economy. That's the kind of nurturing, accommodation, planning, and support that tourism needs and that I need to go forward. And if I'm in for a massive fight with council to remove the zoning holding provisions for the next phase of this, there's no point in me working on financing with the bank. There's no point in me doing any of that. And I've already invested a couple $100,000 in plans, but we're talking about $35 million in construction costs to build this. And this is just on the 30 acres. This isn't the whole Spa Village. The whole Spa Village is about $150 million project. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I also want to leave a token of my Well, not a token of my appreciation, it's really just it's not about. These are trees. Yeah, and I know it's kind of weird. But I'm not giving these to you because that would be wrong. I'm entrusting each of these to you, councillors, to find a place to plant this tree, to nurture it, to water it, to see it grow, and someday some of you younger people in the room might look back and say, John Logo plant when it's 40 feet high. And it's producing pine cones. Because I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to cut down the tree than it is to grow a tree. So please, plant these responsibly. You can plant them on my property if you want. Any place you want. Plant them in your backyard, but,
I think, Jim, that, as we're not allowed gifts, that we should look, and decide amongst us the best place to plant these, so, you know, certainly let me know.
I'm not giving them to you. That's to,
You're
I'm giving
entrusting,
you a task.
yeah, you're entrusting me to plant it somewhere.
Right.
special,
On my property or on public property, your choice, but you can't do that.
and I know. Everybody check my house, make sure you got one.
I think, Jim, this is a great plan. I've never seen it before. And I look forward to being part of achieving these goals.
Thank you, Mayor. And I hope that at some future date, you can all come and have a walking tour of what we've done there, and you can see.
I'd like to do that, and I'm not going to get it done. I mean, where you are today, and we'll see if we can't, the council and the team staff to come take a look at it, and we'll see what we're doing, and see a little bit more what you're doing. I'm looking forward to it, really,
Right. I do have one quick question for you, Your Worship. What about the road? I know you had some concerns over, you know, the past couple winters for snow removal on the road. Are you anticipating incorporating that private road into this design, so you would sort of eliminate the Academy Hill and all that, and come up with I don't want to get into the issues that this, I know that is incorporated in this plan.
The reason we built the internal road was in the consultation we had with council at the time. One of the concerns of our neighbors was that we would create increased traffic on municipal roads. So we put a road in that came off the county road. We have been very fortunate in that the county, the municipality has never forced us to keep that road open in the winter. So in the winter, we revert to use of the municipal roads. But I would say we're very close to being able to afford to keep that road open, clear and safe. It's paved now. But yeah, that's the idea, is to bring all the traffic. However, most of the problem on Academy Hill Road is trucks going to Ice River that got stuck, or trucks that come to St. Anne's that got stuck on the hill, and then nobody can get by, and it just becomes a complete.
And we'll work on those issues.
Yeah, and those issues aren't going to go away because these trucks won't be using.
Thank you. Appreciate all your effort, and I'm sure other people are here to hear it too, and I'm sure we'll go for it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you know where that tree's going.
It's not yours.
I know, I didn't say it. So I'll let you know where it goes.
Good
Yeah.
job.
We'll have to water that.
Got a water in there.
They're very dry. They're from Canadian Tire and they're very dry.
Thank you for that.
They're all in the water. My water. Okay. Absolutely. That's great to see you get bush. But it's too long. But. Well, say the same stuff over again?
Oh, did we?
We're not used to listening to the same. It's gonna be fun, sure.
I lost the count.
But you had a good idea, maybe this would be a good idea. Fix it for after screen times. And they could- somewhere that would be.
Yeah, I like the sign sheet.
I was gonna say a tree in memorial, X 3AO, but can't say memorial, so.
We'll get an apple tree out there.
Not tree.
I thought they were gonna plant you there. That's what he said. He said, we're gonna plant some nut trees. We'll get 5 of them here. You're excluded, of course.
Yeah.
CEO. Of course. And deputy clerk. One thing I want to correct you, but $180,000 in taxes is, yeah, I just want to say that it's $180,000 total taxes, of which ADH gets a portion and the county gets a portion and no, we don't, but he does pay $180,000. We get about 40% of that. Roughly. Maybe 42. Somewhere in that neighborhood. So it's big money. 40% of 180,000 would be 70%. If Mary Catherine gets back in, we're free on the road.
Ready to call you fairly. No, I had it.
Okay. Move on to item 7, which is approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting.
We didn't have a resolution.
Thank you. So we need to be resolved, the council of the township of Allen Alderman received the information provided by Jim Corcoran regarding the update of the planned expansion of St. Anne's Spa and impact on the local economy. And I get a mover and a seconder, moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Booth. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Next, we have the approval of the minutes, the regular council meeting minutes of February 16th, 2023. Be it resolved that the regular council meeting minutes of February 16th, 2023 be approved. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Ainsworth, second by Deputy Mayor Stover. Any comments or questions? Yes, go ahead.
To your man logo, I was just wondering, trying to find the exact page that I read it and, to you, Madam Clerk, I just wondering, how the police checks are going for the volunteers.
They're not. I'm gonna send out a letter to all the volunteers. I just don't.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I had one regarding the emergency procedures meeting that's to be scheduled in the spring. Has that been done yet?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
About the pit use, what was the date? Has that happened? I didn't. the date
No,
was-
it has not happened, and
I believe it was in July? Yeah, I will confirm that. I don't recall what it is offhand.
Do we need signage or something like that?
They take care of everything. They'll go door to door. They'll make everyone aware in that neighborhood. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll put a sign up or anything, but they'll make everyone aware of it.
Okay. Somehow or other, we gotta do it. But it would be nice to know when that is coming up, so we, council
Yeah.
is aware of that. Anything else? All in favor? Carried. Next we have, business arising, which I believe we've already handled, and then we're gonna move on to fire department, council report from David Dawson, fire chief, dated May 9th, 2023, regarding apparatus procurement process for pickup trucks. Be resolved that the council of the township of Allen Colden accept the fire chief's report and approve the purchase of the pickup trucks as identified in the apparatus procurement plan as approved by council on February 6, 2023. Moved and seconded. Moved by Councillor Ainsworth. Seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Any discussions? Go ahead, made the motion.
No, I just want to say that, I went up to see David about the trucks and stuff, and, just so the council knows that, like, they're, instead of ordering tanks, they got one of their firefighters that can make the tank for like $5,000 instead of $10,000 kind of thing, right? So it's nice to see, and a couple other things, but, that they're making, and the phones that go on the back of these trucks for grass fire, and then being the trucks have been put into a pond, pump over into the pumper truck to go off to the fire. It's going to be used, so they don't have portable pumps and stuff like that. So it's a pretty good versatile unit. So I'm glad I went up and spent the time with it, and you give me the information about saving money, you know, where we can do that along the line. So that was good to hear.
So do you know how much are you saving?
I don't, but I actually maybe put that together when he sends the next ones out like this, what they're doing with it all and how they're.
We should do it even with both. Okay, I thought that you should put it in this report because that's really should be coming so that council will be aware of it and we can keep track of what money is saved and which will be used for something else again.
So I
So
asked them to do that for this, the next time this happens.
He'll have another report coming back on these vehicles as well, because we have to put lights and decals and stuff on it. So this is just step one, just letting council know that, you know, the price of the truck came in under budget. But again, he's not done. So he will provide another report when it's all done. He's just keeping you up to speed on what's going on.
your Catherine?
Just further that, Chief Dawson had actually reached out to a number of, suppliers or different places to get these trucks. So while only one of them in the end did the RFP, he had reached out to several before. And I'm not sure about this process and maybe what we should be doing moving forward, because he did get more prices when he reached out than through the RFP process. And I'm just, just want to make sure that everybody.
Your worship. Yeah, through your worship, we put this on Bid and Go, which is nationwide program. I've done it many times since I came here. And when I put half-ton trucks on before, we've had multiple bids and stuff. So I'm not sure why this one only got, one, but it was on our website and posted on Bid and Go. So I'm the administrator on it, so I'm able to see of all these dealerships that actually see it. So whether they didn't have time or just chose not to bid. So, but it's definitely distributed to all the dealerships in this area. So.
And that was for one, or two. No, yeah, but there was different.
Yeah, there's one half-ton and then 2 1-tons.
2 1-tons.
Yeah, that's 3.
And they're going to be used for, 2 of the big ones are used for firefighting, actually, thanks. Go ahead, Councillor.
So maybe to, I don't know, Mary Catherine, if you can answer, maybe Troy, you can. So the F-150, that's replacing whose truck now?
That's replacing the deputy chief's. So that's the older one, and then his truck will be going to Parks Department. And then you'll be selling that truck. So that truck will go on Up Deals. So it's like a 2009 or something, two-wheel drive, so.
And I guess my second question is, what color is the F-150?
Of which ones? This one that's purchased?
Yeah.
I believe they're red. I believe they're red.
I just wanted to make sure, because I know the chief had talked about we were going away from in the past where, the last chief had a nice white fire truck with, sort of disappearing decals that, you could park it at home. Not saying that he did, but you could park it at home and it looked great. But you only saw the decal if you looked right on it. And I think Chief Dawson was assuring me back then that they were gonna go to a red fire truck so that it's known that it's a fire vehicle.
No, I,
Which is good.
knowing our chief, it'll be nice shiny red with lots of lights.
That's good. Just like the works department. They like the lights too.
Okay, thank you. We've got to move in a second. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have item 10, Building Planning Department, Council Report from Darren Holton, CEO and review. Planning Assistant, David March, May 16th, regarding special events application approval. And since he's not there, he resolved the report from Darrell Hall, CM Planning Assistant, for special events permit application be approved, and further the council provide direction on the request to waive the fee. Mover and the second. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. You want to lead us on this?
Yeah, sure. Through your worship, this is just an annual event. I believe it's been in the location for the last few years. And I believe we did this last year as well. Everything is, so this is just a repetitive thing. Yeah, so it'll be up to council what you want to do, but it's a recurring event. Do you have anything you want to
This is the first year they've asked.
add? Okay, sorry.
And they paid for it other years?
Through your local. I know there was a discussion with the last council dealing with this where somebody came with a proposal and asked for waiving the fee for the first year, maybe the second year, and then when I got off for this year. So this has this fee always been waived?
No,
No,
it's not. been-
it's the first year request.
Okay,
I'm not, personally, I'm not in favor of this. It's pretty cheap.
I think we have don't we have a bylaw to that? effect?
Regarding the fee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, where it would say, to your middle, where it would say the first year.
No, we don't.
Had discretion
No,
when
nothing.
they started something and then if it got going, then definitely.
I don't think it's that detailed. I think it's
No, I
just a
don't
fee.
know what policy the previous council had followed.
Oh, okay.
This is the fourth year, right?
We,
I think that's what it says in the fourth year. A nonprofit group of close friends and neighbors have been putting on this show in the township for the past 4 years.
Since 2007.
I think we should follow the policy.
I mean, council has the right if they vote so to, we've waived fees in the past before, but like you said, that when it was something that was starting. We've waived fees in the past before. There used to be the Grace Bowen thing that was at the arena, which we waived. The carnival, but then the carnival got so big that they were having balloon rides and this and that and everything else, but they kept coming to the town to say waive the fee, and it was like, whoa. Hold on a second, you're paying all your vendors, you're paying everybody to supply all this stuff, and you're coming to the town, and you want the town not to even collect back the staff wages, so we ended that, right?
It's a tough call, but I tend to agree with, this is the fourth one. It's been established. And I would agree that. So that would be okay.
So what are we looking at, $150?
Yeah.
250. I
250.
think it's
Yeah.
250.
It's $500 is just a deposit, which they get back.
And there's 250 on top of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it is a fundraiser for a good cause. And, you know, the Bowen family, the residents of ours. So,
The Bowen family doesn't get anything.
no, I understand that. They, I think I'd probably give more than that myself in donations throughout the year. So I'm just wondering if we just can't. Well, we have a policy and I know.
Who made the motion?
By the mayor and seconded by,
Okay.
Well, that was for the discussion, to get it on the board.
Okay, all right.
so you've written.
Resolution.
Yeah.
That's what we, that's
So
what I
we-
read.
Approved, but the second part of the resolution is whether or not council wants to waive the fee.
I read it all at once.
You can bring it up.
You want to
Is
bring
this-
it up?
So do you want to bring it up?
Yeah, I guess we will
Okay.
get to if there's gonna be discussion.
No, there's really just gonna be, that was your motion. So it was your motion to be resolved, the council of Belleville called and received the first report regarding the status of the 2023 capital projects for information.
You're one down.
Yeah.
Back up.
It's right here, though.
I'm sorry. Be resolved, the report from Darrell Hall, planning assistant regarding the special events permit application be approved. Is that what you're,
And further that council provide direction on the request to waive the fee.
yes.
So do you want to, break that motion up?
Well, then I would say, that council does not waive the fee.
That's the motion.
So approve the permit, but they pay it and they pay the application.
And they pay the fee.
That's what you did.
That's what I mean.
Okay. Are you seconding that?
Well, no, I didn't do that.
Okay.
Well, I'll second it
Okay.
so that we can discuss it, but I'm gonna agree. I think we have to. I agree with the mayor, we have to start looking at, these are bylaws that are in place, and I understand the answer, and it's a good cause and everything, but ask council, all of them are good causes, and a lot of them are, you know, whether it's cancer or this or that or whatever, and I think we've been talking about budget and everything, where we want to start to get a cost recovery, and some of us councillors have even said we want to run it like a business more, so you have to take the feelings out of it, and if it was something new, I would agree, maybe the first year, like the deputy mayor said, to get started, but if this is 4 years running, I would vote in favor of not waiving the fees.
Further discussion? Yes.
So is this a moneymaker for them? Like, I mean,
It's a fundraiser for the.
all the money goes to the Grace Bowman.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Could I just ask one question before we move? The $2 million liability insurance, is that something that was discussed about the STRs, about liability insurance and things like that? Is that
They're
standard?
sitting at $1 million.
Is that a standard for 2 million?
2 million on my own home.
Is that a sort of standard?
Yeah.
It's not going to be discussed at the STRs, but I think it was just why it was $1 million when if the standard is 2.
Well, this is a bigger facility than some.
No,
But I do
but
agree.
I think what I'm referring to is most standards now, and Patty just said, it's $2 million on your house now. I don't know if you'd be doing an SDR thing as well as $1 million. But that's something that I'm sure will be.
This is a quick comment. I don't think it makes an awful lot of difference as far as the cost, whether it's $1 million or $2 million bucks.
It's
It
probably
doesn't,
50 bucks.
it's 50 bucks, 20 bucks.
It's only $20-some for my home.
And all you're doing is protecting yourself in case whatever. Really. And
And if somebody ends up injured for life, it does cost more than $100.
okay, thank you for pointing this out. We're going to move on to administration. 11.1, council report from Pat Kemp, clerk, May 16, 2023, regarding the status of the 2023 capital projects. Pat, go ahead.
Thank you. So the mayor has requested that staff prepare a report on the new 23 capital projects. So on page 3 of my report, you'll see there's a listing that has all the capital projects. So the Whitmore Church, the cost estimate was 50,000. I received a bid for 45,330. It should be noted that when they did the mandatory site inspection, that Mr. Dean asked if we could include an addendum that would see the roof of the people. So if we did include that in the bid, there will be a report coming back to council on June 6th. The tandem axle plow truck, we had estimated the cost to be 300,000, it came in at 338. Again, the director of public works will be bringing a report back to council on June 6th. We just dealt with the fire department's trucks. The replacement of the 483 tanker truck, that one, tender will be issued. It's expected that that will come in until 2024, but that's hasn't been started yet. Fire master plan and community risk assessment, we just issued that RFP on Friday of last week, and it will be due on June the 2nd rather than May 25th, because we wanted to allow enough time for bidders to be able to submit their bids. The next one then is the council equipment and furniture. The deputy clerk is working on that, and same with the admin office furniture and equipment. So we'll be going for an RFP on those. The tablet for the law enforcement officer, we had estimated the cost at 3,000, it came in at 2,970. That one is complete. The ACC capital upgrades for the front reception, that was 31,000, and that was completed through the OTM payment.
Looks good. Pretty good job.
The contractor for the Parks and Rec and the bleacher, they have they require an RFP that hasn't been started yet. The steamer, it is for the public works department. It's estimated at 25,000. It needs 3 quotes. The new water tank, that's for inside the public works truck. That one will need 3 quotes. The auto extrication, it will require an RFP. The same as the portable radios, we need 3 quotes, and the building upgrades and station one will need an RFP. So I would suggest that on a monthly basis, we bring back this report and update it, and we put that, you know, the status. If anything is over budget, then we'll ask for the department to send a report.
I have a couple of questions. If the tractor hasn't been ordered or hasn't started an RFP yet, are we gonna be able to use it this year?
Through your worship, there's still time if there's a tractor on the lot. Tractors are a little bit different than the vehicles. A lot of vehicles have to be made, like tandems and stuff like that. A lot of tractors, the quotes that come in will be the tractors that are on the lot. So it should be a fairly quick process.
The new water tank. I would have thought that would be used in construction. But
They must be using the old one still because there's construction has started, so.
is it necessary? That's my question.
And manager of public works will be at the meeting on June 6th, so it's a valid question.
I have one other question regarding replacement 483 tanker. I'm not. There was I believe I made a request to find out that other pumper. What it would cost to fix it? And I haven't heard nothing back.
I reached out to the chief and he'll provide a report on June 6th. Okay.
Anybody else have it? Mike, go ahead.
To you, Mayor Lobo. So when we went to the good road stop, you know, there was multiple booths there that were loading smaller vehicles that do the same work nowadays, right? So smaller plows. And so instead of paying 300,000 for it, we'll get still do the same work, and they have videos of showing how we'll do the same work. And so I'm wondering when we were looking at that. I mean, Brian was at the Good Road, so it'd be nice to maybe have a report from Brian to look back and to at some of these the booths that were there from the organizers and maybe put something like that together, maybe look and see what they could use for those. Instead of just going out and buying these same things like clockwork and, you know, start looking at some of this stuff. So we can save some money. Because it really, there was a abundance of things at that Good Roads seminar that Mary Catherine and I took in. And I think we have something that we're going to bring to council to show you just to, for the things that we did and what we thought of it all. It'd be nice to see something from Brian. That all that stuff that was there that could save us some money. Get a truck that's going to do the same job, maybe for half the price.
To your worship, great idea. I think in future that everyone who attends a conference or trade show or whatever should be bringing report back to council, and that's councilors and staff. But touching base on your comment on, you know, new innovative things to make jobs easier. I agree. And our manager of public works, he can reach out and provide a demo because so things are a lot different these days. You know, it's like you just said, smaller trucks. So you don't want to purchase it without trying it. So he can be in contact with these companies and setting it up. Okay, you know what, a demo rep in December, January, come and show us what this vehicle can do. See if it can plow the roads and stuff. So there's ways that he can do that. So it's a great idea. We could mention it to our manager, to all department heads actually. But I'm a firm believer that the conferences the report should be coming back. So, you know, so council's aware.
Thank you. Mary Catherine?
Just to pick up on some of those things, would it be possible to receive the procurement bylaw so that we understand this? And mine is back to the fire chief's one. Sometimes when people are going out and seeking things, or if they go to this conference, and I definitely saw other municipalities that they had members of council and members of their public works team, and they were seeking out some people because they knew that was the purchase that was on the budget for next year. So this is something that in our report's going to come forward, is the need for people to go prepared, not just to react to what happens there, but to go looking specifically for certain items. And how that fits in with our procurement policy as it is sort of where I'm going at this point.
Kind of like what they're saying, a little bit the same, a little bit, but somebody's made me aware that you don't need to have brand new or fire trucks that are a certain age. They can be used beyond 20 years.
Yeah.
Is what I haven't read it myself, but I'm told that.
I read it.
You read it?
I read it, and it says it can be used after 20 years as long as the pump is certified and it's roadworthy, and there's a whole bunch of things. So I think we need to look at that in the future as council, because they're quite expensive pieces of equipment. Quite expensive. Possibility, you know, sometimes it's better to spend $30,000 on if the pump is not. I'm guessing the pump is the big one, but
That's correct.
But there was other things in that, Troy, that it mentioned about, it wasn't something about being roadworthy. So it's sort of like a certification type thing that they check a bunch of stuff, and if that's fine and you keep it in tip top shape, it can be used, right?
Not forever, but you might get another 3, 4, 5 years out of it.
Yeah.
And actually, back 20 years ago, we were on. No, 10 years ago. Well, were you on when
2010.
did the township buy a truck from Coburg at the time?
Yes, it was ladder truck.
Yeah. Not really what we needed, but
The old ladder truck.
didn't we get 3 or 4 years or 5 years on that?
I believe so. That was the one we got rid of last council, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit too big.
Yeah, yeah, but. if
Couldn't
you
get down a
what I'm
road.
saying, we got it for the right price, but now you gotta get the right thing at the right price.
Yeah, and the problem with that one was pump, and we should have maybe gone to somewhere to find out, listen, if it's just the pumping, we have to spend $50,000 or whatever, and we get another 5 years out of it. It would be a lot better than forking out $650,000 for.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you gotta have good equipment, no question, and you gotta have new stuff, but you don't have to have everything new all the time.
Right.
Okay.
Somebody threw out the term roadworthy. One of the trucks that we have, people are allowed to sit in a way that's no longer legal. And that is, it can sometimes be something other than a pump or whatever, the quality of the vehicle, if the rules have changed. And that was one of those things that has changed, this must be facing forward now.
But through you, with the, just like council needs to be aware of the municipal act and stuff, so maybe there's, maybe council needs to take a look at that NFPA that often comes up in discussion in council. Familiarize yourself with it and some of the updated or the changes or the, requirements, so.
Certainly the
Just
lead-
another document that you need
The
to.
lead person should be.
Yeah.
Be doing that.
there's a lot of the wording says you should. It doesn't say it's mandatory that you must. It says it shall, or you should make sure, and as long as it's, and we'll rely on the chief for that, it's us, with this piece of equipment, we can.
Yep.
Yeah, we definitely need to start looking at
But
it.
you need to know where to go to look at it yourself, though, like, just know the index, so when there's information brought to council, you can go and research it and take a look yourself.
Go ahead.
Pat, I don't think it's a capital project, but would you happen to know what's going on with the Black Cat? I think that was in his operating budget. I don't think it was capital, but Brian has been saying now for months that he's looking at purchasing another Black Cat, and that was the money from the police, community policing. If you could just touch base with him, maybe find out where that is.
I do know that Susan has had a number of demonstrations. So, but I'll follow.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Madam Clerk, can we also find out about the sanctuary, what we're doing with that?
Yes.
Through your worship, I sent a message out to manager of public works today, just saying that he needs to get a hold of Lower Trent and meet with Lower Trent down at the sanctuary to find out what he can do, what he should do to make them happy. And come up with a plan, maybe not just by him, but maybe, a consultant and bring it forth to council of this is what we want to do. But I think the first step is have Lower Trent down there, get Lower Trent on his side, our side, come up with a good plan that's, going to be, great for habitat and so on and so forth. So he got that message from me today.
That's that.
Oh.
Go ahead.
And just so that council's aware, I did send out a notice to Brian as well, to let him know that the Schwann property has sold in that direction that has in the past. Or to be used on the Nuwatan sanctuary, so that he's aware of the police.
And just, we didn't actually see how much money we would spend there to be.
No, the resolution says something to the effect that the proceeds from the sale be used for Nuwatan, what's not used to go into parks and recreation.
And Dory, I agree with you, that the idea to have consult with the conservation authority. But if anybody's been down there lately, there's the trees that have been blown over. And there was actually some trees that were, some of the paths that the trees have been taken by the roots and they're over and they're halfway sitting and it's not safe. But it's almost to the point where we should be considering not using it.
Yeah, and I do think he needs to have Lower Trent down there right away, because not a pointless step, but if he comes in here and says, we need to do this, 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 and then Lower Trent says, no, no, no. So you might as well start with Lower Trent right off the hop. And some of those dangerous trees over the pathway, yes, I do agree. But Lower Trent, some of those fallen trees, within the pond, they may love that, right? So turtles can get up and.
But I'm worried about
The ones over the.
and the bridge too.
But we'll follow up with Brian even again tomorrow and to make sure he gets that process going because it's important.
Wouldn't it be our parks guy who would be looking and assessing the safety of the trail?
Well, yes, yeah, there should be.
Reports to Brian.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
I just.
Yeah, no, you're
Clear
right.
my
You're right.
mind.
Yeah, our parks would, they should be doing their safety checks on all parks. It should be monthly checks. And then when the grass cutters, cut over there, it should be weekly checks, right? Inspections. So I'll mention it to Brian.
Deputy Mayor?
To you, Mayor Lobo, I'm wondering too, if this is not something that we could look at in the fall, is reinstating the Nawatan Sanctuary Committee that kind of overseen that park area, because they seem to have eyes on the ground and they seem to enjoy that.
There's someone who cares passionately about something.
Yeah.
Through your worship, I was involved with that committee and I'm not a big committee fan, but that committee was beneficial. They were really good. I will say that because again, it's just one of those areas of the township sometime you don't get to, and that committee, those people are there all the time. So I did find that committee worthwhile, but that's just from my past experience.
Is it something that we could get into place now or look forward to the fall? I'm not sure what the best direction to ask for volunteers.
I would even make a suggestion that once Brian touches base, maybe with Lower Trent, that could be a perfect scenario for an ad hoc type committee. Is that a lot of money that we've got there, or whether it's 100,000 or 200 or whatever, that committee can actually sit on there and give us input if they're really dedicated like that, to say this is what we're suggesting, right? Because we're talking a lot of money and we have to make sure that when we do it right the first time. We
Yes,
can't muck up on
that'd be
this, so.
Two things and an ad hoc or this committee as well.
I would try to get
Full-time
Yeah.
committee. So maybe we form the full-time committee then and they can be involved. I am in the start.
I would say we get going, but we can certainly advertise for the local.
Remember.
Agree?
Yes.
Who's going to make the motion?
No, we gotta go on the motion.
I just want to ask, Madam Clerk, so we talked about, anybody goes away to a seminar, that we would come back and have a report. Does that need a motion?
It will, but
Not
we
After
want
this
to deal
one.
with what's on,
Yeah.
but we don't have a member sector for
Capital projects,
like that.
Yes.
because you were, so all of us, and I think we did. Okay, so I gotta go back to the
Under
front sheet, 11, 1. Be resolved the council, do we not have a- I guess I didn't. Be resolved the council, the township of Allen will receive a question report to May 16th regarding the status of the 2023 capital projects for information. Further, that staff be requested to provide an update on a monthly basis. So I get a mover and a seconder for that. By Deputy Mayor Stover, second by Councillor O'Neill. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion carried. Then we got another motion that you were going to bring regarding the
We reinstate the sanctuary committee and ask for volunteers to join the committee.
5.
How many I think there was 5 or 7 last
Yeah,
time.
I think there was at least 5, I guess.
Yeah.
Because there would be some, we did working committees.
That might have been the difference.
Maybe, but for staff wise, it'd obviously be the manager and then probably the foreman should be on
I'm sure Pat can look up what the last committee was and.
Don't make it too big.
Yeah.
Don't make it too big, but make it so the guys that are really taking care of it want to be down there walking.
Minimum of 5, maximum of 7.
Yeah.
We need a separate,
Second by Councilor Reeves. Any further discussion? All in favor? Go ahead, Mike.
Too fast. That's your Mayor Lobo. So there is a fella that's down there, Troy, you might know his name, that spends a lot of his own volunteer time. And he's kind of like a. Oh, is it Tom?
Well, there's one.
You know. I know, but I don't know if we should, reach out to him, let him know what's happening and.
I'm sure.
I don't know, can you comment on that?
Yeah, through your worship. I do know most of the people, the frequent park users are on our website. So if we post it, they follow the township quite closely. So if we put it on our social media, I'm almost positive they will see it.
I agree.
All in favor? Carried. Is there another motion? Yeah, please.
I want to make a motion that, they go to, someone. Come back and go to report.
Further, seconder?
Well, I'll second it, but I want to ask, Pat, can we just do that on the motion, Pat? Or is policy item thing, does that? Or because that's involving more staff. It's a policy, right?
You would eventually get a policy out, but you could ask that a report be presented now, and then we'll make it.
And I'll be the first one to do it.
Oh, I have no issue with it. I'm just thinking that, well, it's a big change for people going, so I just want to make sure, is it just something that council can vote on right here, and then it's like, that's it, when you go to it's gospel, or does that have to go anywhere else because it's actually changing?
So you can request it from the staff and from council, and then we'll include it in the policy.
So it's not gonna happen until it gets included into the policy. When's the policy update?
You can still ask the staff. You can still ask. the
We'll
staff.
know who's going, and then, so, for example,
Make them aware.
manager of
I'll
public
go to
works.
police
promote-
services board next. Go on with the first one. Go on.
Yeah, we've got one together for the roads.
I don't know why we, except that every agenda is so big that
Oh,
we
yeah,
say,
we do it already.
wait.
We'll put ours in for the next day.
Okay, all in favor? Motion carried.
Did we have a seconder?
Thank you.
Next we have
A lot worse.
council 11-2 is a council report from Pat Kemp clerk dated May 16, 2023 regarding the update on the Grafton well replacement.
Okay, so I thought it would be timely to please update council on the Grafton communal well that we got the funding for. So as you're aware, we did put in an RFP for project manager. The CA would like them, and we asked them to revise the schedule, which is in my report. We also, they have just recently, yesterday, I guess, we posted the RFQ for the well drilling. And that will be coming back in the report. It says May 25th, but we had some changes that they were doing at the last minute, so we extended that. And as far as the financial, because we haven't got into a lot of work as of yet, and we haven't received any invoices from the consultant, we don't have a lot of expenses, but I'm sure by the next time, the next meeting, then I'll be able to update council and let you know what the process is. So the RFQ is due on the 2nd of June. So probably we won't have a report for our June 6th meeting, but the next meeting. You know. Well, really. Yes, and then how much more do we expect? Because even to prepare the RFQ, the individual from your Galloway, they did some work and then impact Camp from GeoCan, he did some review, and also Grant Parkinson from the BM. So those amounts will be coming forward and
Be resolved that the Council of Township of Hamilton received a report from the clerk dated May 16th, 2023 regarding an update on the Grafton Well Replacement Project, and further that the clerk provide regular updates to council and Grafton Communal Water Committee. Mover and a second. Moved by Councilor Booth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Any questions or discussions?
Just a quick question, if this passes now, will we send this information on to the communal?
Yes, they
Committee
have a
members?
meeting coming up on June 1st. So I was gonna take the report over to the.
Okay. I don't want to.
Well,
I just want to make sure that you don't cut your timeline too short. You mentioned that maybe in June you'd be bringing them back, so maybe because by the time they go and review all the RFQs or whatever, it may be a little bit longer. But I just don't want council to know that it's going to come back that second meeting in June. It may be 1st of July. So I just want to make sure that you're not rushed doing it or whatever, so.
June 1st is the water committee. We have to reschedule it.
It was just an update for them. This would change, but it's just, I have it in there. Good information for it. Okay, thank you.
The $458,000 is the township share. For that, in my recollection, I could be wrong, my recollection of that money was earmarked to the reserves for capital project improvements.
Yes, and the treasurer was to come back to us with, to the committee to decide how we were going to look at whether they were going to do a debenture, whether they were going to take it all out and pay it all at once, or whether they were going to say pay half of it in debenture. She was to come back to us with a plan to say how we're going to do it.
That's correct. And as part of the draft budget with the water committee, she did put in there, to be funded from the municipal working capital reserves until the government funding comes in, because we have to pay all of the costs up front, and then we submit the claim once the project is done. So then she went on to say, once the federal provincial funding comes in, we flow into cash flows of the municipality are such that we can carry this and the working capital reserve is at the end of 2022. We have to bring back a report on how it needs to be funded in the future, and so.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Motion carried. Next, we have council report from Pat Kemp's birth dated May 16th regarding the strategic plan SWOT. Pat,
So as council is aware, we did have our meeting on May the 2nd, and a number of good ideas came up under all of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and tracks. So I pulled it all together and presenting it to you so that you can review it. If there's any changes that you want to make, or if you think there's things that we neglected to put on the list, that we can add it to it. Just for council's information as well. We have the surveys are due next 24th, so next Wednesday. And then based on those surveys, we'll be bringing a report back to council to let you know what the majority of the public want. And council's aware too, because you're going through a process to hire a new CAO. It's been delayed on when you elect.
okay. Be resolved, the council of the township of Allentown will receive the report from the clerk dated May 16th, 2023 regarding the strategic plan analysis, and further the council concur with the SWOT analysis as outlined in the attached list. Weaver and a second. Moved by Deputy Mayor Silver, second by Councilor Eastworth. Are there any questions or discussions regarding this report?
But I like the ones that end up both as a strength and a weakness. I find that interesting, the double-edged sword on some items. We know
Mike?
Just more of a clarification with the swoops. So will we take those swoops and like tackle one department and then tackle the next department? So we take these, the SWOT analysis, the SWOT analysis, And like,
He wanted
like they
that's all over
tackle one department and say like, how does all this fit into the public works? And then go to the next department and say, how does all this fit into planning?
So you'll be taking what you've done so far, and then you'll be taking the information that we gathered from the public surveys. And then you'll be deciding on a public meeting how you want to move forward. So everything that's on the list may or may not end up as what your goals are going to be. Otherwise, it's never going to be achievable. So typically what you can do is maybe pick 3 or 4 items for this year, next year, the following year. And every year you review them, you see how far you are. And at staff, we would go through that for marching orders of what you'd like to see achieved. And then we would bring back a report to you and tell you whether or not we did meet the goals and have it achieved. And if not, there may be a reason why not. And if the council in next year, you review it again, and there may be some other thing that comes up that takes higher priority than what's already on your list, and you need to give us direction to maybe wait to do this item and proceed with this.
Okay, yes.
Further questions? All in favor? That's carried. Next, we're going on to 12, communications, correspondence from the municipality of Port Hope dated May 2nd, 2023, regarding a resolution of council, Article 25 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right to house and shelter. And the resolution is, be it resolved that the correspondence from the municipality of Port Hope dated May 2nd, 2023, regarding resolution of council, Article 25 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right to housing and shelter, be received and filed. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Any discussion? Go ahead, Mike.
Can I ask where this came from?
Municipality of Port Hope.
Or what I mean, like, the purpose of it, was there issues somewhere that it?
Yeah, I think in general, Port Hope is wants to lead this because well, this full council into here, the full council is concerned about housing and shelter and feels it's a right of everybody that lives to have that.
It guides decision making, sorry for jumping in there. But if you say that this is a high priority, which is essentially what they're saying, it will guide all decisions, then the full reference back to that right.
I was wondering if we could, discuss it as we move further along in our strategic plan and housing is going to be an issue that comes back to us, and we might want to revisit this at that time. Just receive and file now, but we might want to revisit it at that time.
Further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Next one is correspondence from Enbridge Gas dated May 2nd, 2023 regarding clarification of local charges and infrastructure operations. Be it resolved, the Council of Township of Alma received this correspondence from Enbridge Gas dated May 2nd, 2023 regarding clarification of the local charge and infrastructure operations, and that further council direction is required. Mover and second. Moved by Councilor Ainsworth and seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. This discussion. Go ahead.
When you say your worship and members of council, is this specifically to us, or is this been sent to everyone?
Looks like it has.
Yeah, I would say it's to everybody.
Yeah.
Reading it myself, I would say we just receive and file, because when you really look at it, it's talking about, they want people to call the government of Ontario to have a dedicated located model, but that's for, when you read it, it's for large corporate things, right?
And just so you all know, Alma Tolman is a large corporation. So a third party, we would be considered as part of that third party.
So how often are we using a locate first?
That's a good question.
Well, through your worship, every time we do culverts, ditching. We use locates quite a bit. However, you know, we don't have a lot of this infrastructure out in rural parts, but we still do locates. But
Is this for all gas lines?
we do it for all services. We have a person that will locate all things.
Is it called a one, is it called one call or call one? Yeah.
So is Enbridge suggesting that they don't want to use call one? Because call one would do the job this time, didn't
I don't think there's a fee, no, but I do think that they may want to have their own.
They're saying that they're gonna charge, we introduced a locate charge for third party and for profit locate requesters. Anybody that's a private property owner and existing natural gas customers remain at no charge. So if you're putting a fence on your yard or something, and you have natural gas, you can call them, it's no charge.
Yes.
But if
Where
you're,
a third party.
But my understanding of it is we're a third party.
could we maybe ask that to find that out? If that's what it's, then we would be concerned, and we should send a letter to the government saying that
They don't even pay that.
Roy did some other investigating too.
Yeah, they paid and can I mention this, their taxes?
Roundabout.
Approximately $150,000 in taxes. Enbridge.
to us for their property that they have.
To pay them. Yeah, I think it's about 7 million for structure that they have.
I think we still be, I would, he was suggesting, somebody suggested we find out exactly what third party is.
And if we're.
And we can find out through our manager of public works, the process that he goes through for getting locates. And again, it's been a couple of years since I've been in public works, so but I'm assuming it's the same, but you know, mention to him or he can do a report just on his process of getting locates. So we have an idea, and when he does get those locates, what does it involve? You know, bell, hydro, gas, whatever. So I think it's a discussion that we should have with our manager of public works here.
So everyone's aware, it just doesn't matter, it's public agenda, but the council, county council is looking at faxing things along.
When I'm out walking, and it's along the county road, because it's 22, but all the yellow things, the markers, when those big snowbanks came in the winter, all those plastic yellow markers. They're down, they're broken, some of them. Broken in pieces.
Yeah, for the public works, whenever come back to us a report, if we're considered third party and what the cost would be, and then I would. That we look at it again, and we don't want to be paying for that. When, can I ask a question? So when you do locates, are we doing them for just our work, or is it sometimes residents we're doing it for because we're working around there?
We just do it for our work. We get locates and they'll locate it all. And if it goes across, you know, hydro comes across your front lawn and comes into our ditch, so it's all marked out. So
We don't do anything until they get locates.
Which is a good idea.
Yeah.
I was just wondering whether we did stuff that would involve, because then obviously that would be passed down to the consumer, right? That if we're getting locates on your property for you, no, this looks like, well, it would be covered anyway.
Well, I think, I can't remember who moved the second. Okay, thank you. So I think what Greg is suggesting, if you're willing to suggest that, is that we give direction to staff to find out what where we actually do the locates and find out whether we're a third party. And we have to pay.
process of getting locates.
Well, that's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion's carried. Correspondence from Ruth Horsey. dated May 7th, 2023, regarding resignation from the Allen Colgan Public Library Board. Be it resolved, the Council of Township of Allen received with regret the correspondence from Ruth Dorsey regarding her resignation from the Allen Colgan Public Library Board. And further, the council directs staff to prepare a thank you letter for Mrs. Corsley for her service. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Booth. Seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Any discussion? Go ahead, Mayor Gottlieb.
Just wondering if we'll do an exit interview and look at what happened the last time. We had 3 board members leave. Might not be the situation we're in now. If there'd been some discussions that happened sooner, so perhaps our human resources person could just reach out to them and establish issues that we need to be aware of.
I think because of this funny relationship we have, we'll have to get Mr. Booth, who's our chair, to find out whether they would allow us to do that almost, don't they?
All I know is in her letter, it said due to personal reasons. So she might not want to elaborate.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to, obviously, but I think, you know, it is worthwhile rather than, a lot of things. If there are issues, it may not have to be an issue, but if there is an issue, I think we need to know about it sooner.
I don't think they would have a problem with that. That's standard. I did want to mention though, Pat, the library board did get a hold of you because she's also the rep on the Parks and Rec. So that means, the library board has to send somebody else. With the library, that's a
And who normally does an extra interview with that group?
Usually it's done by HR department, but I'd be treading lightly when, especially when it says for personal and confidential reasons. So I wouldn't want to push the too much, but department and
And the worst he says is, no, I don't want to talk to you, and nothing's lost.
we can, I can mention it to our HR department and
Totally different ball. And see what it says.
It's too bad. She was a great member.
Yes, we're on the, Parks and Rec committee.
Very upfront, very telling you exactly like it is. Yeah.
Have you got, you have openings for the on that group?
On what?
The Parks and Rec?
Well, you will now because somebody at the library at the next meeting is going to have to pick somebody that will serve on the library that sits with these guys.
But, yeah.
There was nobody volunteered, but there was a couple of people that were away that we were gonna volunteer to do it, but we decided not to, so we'll wait.
My question to this group is, are they full of members for the Parks and Rec?
No, there is one opening, but if there is someone from this area who it is my understanding is submitting her application along with her daughter, which would be a youth rep, and we have another youth rep. Now, these people are two
have just communicated.
okay. Yeah, so that was a development that happened before we were aware of this one. And one of the things that when I did speak with Ruth, she had started a very good process with us. And I said, you're not on. And she says, well, if I'm invited, I'll continue that process at least. So I've reached out to Jen Keller to see if the committee's willing to continue.
What process would we have to go through to keep them? Or do we have to go through? I think we got our numbers.
So you could have her as contractor, basically come in and do the project that she was working on for you.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be a member, but she would be a facilitator and you could ask her to do that.
So I think we need to look into that, because she's actually a member of your committee because she belongs on the library board. If she's not on the library board anymore, she's not part of that committee.
Yeah, she holds it on.
Yeah, so she, what I would think is if she wants to be on that committee, she would have to apply like everybody else to be on that committee.
Right, unless they hire her as a facilitator for that one project. So if,
Hire?
well,
Okay.
request.
Okay. When you're saying hiring, what? Okay, makes sense.
You got it, sounds like you've got it wording and it's in process.
All in favor? Carried. Correspondence from Alderman Court Apartments dated April 27th. We thank you waiver for waiving of the fee for the new driveway and culvert. The Federation of Ontario College Association, FOCA, dated April 29th, 2023, regarding FOCA alert newsletter. AMO Communications dated May 4th, 2023, regarding the EU watch file. And Emergency Management Ontario Treasury Board Secretariat dated May 4th, 2023, regarding congratulatory letter requirements met under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. MPA, something like that. Be resolved that the following correspondence we received and filed. The Alderman Court Department dated April 27th regarding a thank you waiving of the fee for new driveway in court. The Federation of Ontario Cottagers Association dated April 29th, 2023, regarding FOCA alert newsletter, and AMO Communications dated May 4th, 2023, regarding AMO watch file. And Emergency Management Ontario Treasury Board Secretariat dated May 4th, 2023, regarding congratulatory letter requirements met under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover and seconded by Councilor O'Neill. Any thoughts, comments, or discussions on any of that information? Go ahead, Mayor Godwin.
Just that I'm pleased to see that we met all the emergency, Ontario requirements.
Yep, that's good. That's the one that Dave received, wasn't it?
Yep.
Further discussion? All in favor? No, Mike, do you have something else?
Well, I just wanted to highlight that because, we're just going into the short term now. Trying to, we did that right on. And it's just, throughout the areas, but, big state account that didn't want it, and then they bought the legs, they honored the new buyer off, and then there's, for their annual renewal fees, so it's non-hosted accommodations of $1,200. For the licenses, for non-hosted accommodations.
No, okay. Well, that is basically SDR.
And
Because you're not
then
hosting.
and I think it's the person, the owner is in on site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did read that.
So the principal owner doesn't live
Or he not there. They could be, not live
As
there.
opposed to a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, bed and
The person
breakfast is-
hosting,
Yes.
and then the other is that,
There's some more food for that when we're moving forward, guys.
it's everywhere, everybody's done.
Okay, so all in favor? I think we did it once, but carry. Okay, 13 announcements, notice of motion, Mary Catherine,
So I'm up first, am I?
that's what it says.
All again, happy anniversary. I've spent it with you guys instead of my I've now spent my anniversary with you, John, instead of with Jim. So there we go. Anyway, I have notice of motion right into the fire on it. I would like to establish the Great Grafton Community Center Ad Hoc Committee. I think this is an important thing for us to do because I do not want to turn this into a battle
where the community becomes divided, where Mr. Amy's person, we have to have an arena, and I say, no, we can't have an arena, and then we come to blows, don't want that happening. So, but if we look at this, we both agree very much that we want something great to serve the residents of Grafton. And we've, to the community in general, and we've been backed into a corner. Maybe we can make a repair, but even if we make a repair, it's only a short-term solution. Now, since I prepared this report, I did have an opportunity to discuss it with Jennifer Steen, and she gave me some feedback that I would recommend slightly changing the section where the report came back at the beginning of August. She recommended, and I think it's a good recommendation, that we have that focus on the option for 2023 and 2024. So a short term, and then looking at what might be the bigger project in the longer term goal. But, you know, and this isn't the first committee or first attempt to have a committee. There was an attempt 10 years ago, and if that had happened, we wouldn't have been having this discussion now, because that's the time frame for a major project like that is 10 years out. Even 4 years ago, that other ad hoc committee, they were saying already we know this is going to have phases to roll out. So, but anyway, the community will come together to do something really, really good. But I'm afraid if we don't focus and have that question where we say we are all working together to figure out what can be done, and that it's going to take time and effort, but we can do it. We can do anything, because they don't want people at St. Mary's, and I just always say. But that's, you know, the money that came there, it's a great community, but you've got to have that, and we need a champion within the community, within council, and we need a champion within staff. And that was one of why I really feel we need people with project management skills to lead this through, because it is going to be a lot of hard work on both the community and in staff to have any kind of a new skill down there. But we all need to pull in the same direction.
We're not discussing it, you're bringing this to your attention, correct?
How does a notice of?
It's a notice of.
Right, so now that's, so I move, and be it resolved that the council of the town, sorry.
I could be wrong. I've always thought that was a notice that is coming up. Is
Yes,
that correct?
so Councillor O'Neill has put the notice on the agenda that this is moving forward,
Okay.
and then she can make the motion to ask council to vote on it.
Okay.
And then council can decide if we want to refer it information, if they approve it, if they deny it, it's up to council. I would second that.
Well, I'm gonna have to ask for referral because I'm not prepared to discuss it.
They like it in there.
Well, I'm just not.
That it's the motion be preferred. I don't think we have time to be honest. I mean, how many times can we as a council avoid the discussion?
Well, I'm not suggesting that we. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I think there's there's multiple things here with the motion. And, you know, I mean, just, I don't like centering out the arena any more than I would want to center out. If we got other places in our municipality where maybe we should be doing studies on whether we can afford them, or we like them, or we don't like them. You know, so we got 3 fire departments, we got 3 civic centers, we got, you know, and
Four. No, 4.
So,
Down Grafton, down the arenas as one.
I guess we don't have.
We have 4. We have 4.
We have 4 out of the arena, but yes, you're right.
And libraries, you can go libraries.
Well, yes, and 3 libraries. You know, so all of these, and I don't think, Neither are making a move.
None were making.
All I'm saying is that I think at present, we know floor needs to be fixed. And I think we're having public works come back on a report about the sixth,
June sixth.
whether we're going to put the gel on it or whether we're gonna do an x-ray of the floor to find out where the leak is, put a hole in the floor, fix the holes, put it back together. And I think that option might give us a couple more years to do what you're thinking, maybe put together something, maybe look for funding, maybe look for fundraising and carry on and do those things that you want to do. But if I think now we need to make the decision how we're going to fix the floor and get icing out of the month. Because, you know, that's
I
on the
think
time.
that we are not, we may have that option. We don't even know if we have that.
Well, I would say that I think we do because it looks like, you know, walking on that floor the other day, they've already did it 3 times.
And you'll have the expert
Yeah.
here on the sixth to talk about it. So it's like a company.
I mean, some of the things that you put in your motion, I would like to understand the structure of the building and maybe Troy, if you've got any information like that.
Yeah.
When was the last time it was actually looked at or certified? What were the issues? Have we fixed anything? Was there anything that needed?
In 2016, there was a structure engineer that went through the building. And I actually brought the report. They do have a report here of the facility. And a lot of the foundation, I'm not a building guy, but a lot of the components, major components in the facility, this report says it's in good condition. So there was a lot of, things that needed to be fixed. I do believe the parks manager of the day, he did go and fix a number of them. But the actual structure, according to this report, again, I'm not a structure engineer, but it did come out and say that it's, in good condition. So, and this is this is public document. This was out, so, we can send it out. Whatever. So this was brought to council back in the day.
That was 2016.
Yeah, September 2nd, 2016, the report was.
I guess what I want to add too is that arena serves a purpose for our municipality. We've got how many developments coming in and how many more new houses are going to be built? How many more new kids are coming in, right?
For it.
No, I understand. But if you're going to have an arena, I mean, civic centers and everything else are part of the community, but arenas are a big part of the community in every community. So, and the fact that we've got a whole barn sitting there that could be in the top 4 or 5 or 10 in Ontario that are still running, pretty cool thing to have. And people like to come and play in those places, and it fits the kind of hockey that our kids in our areas are doing. And men's hockey, grandparents and parents coming out and watching their kids. So it's not just for the kids; it's also for parents and the grandparents. That kind of aunts and uncles and all those people that come and watch those kids play hockey. So it's I think it's just much more than what we are here in Catherine. I think you've got a good thing going, but I think it needs to. I think we need to deal with the surface right now, get it ready so we can do ice this year, and put your plan into effect. So I would be like with John, maybe to defer your idea for right now and deal with the issue that we have here in the floor.
I come off being really strong in favor of it. But I'm not saying we're going to be foolish and spend money like crazy and try and keep it open if it's not feasible. That's stupid.
Certainly, we talked at budget time that we did want to see a 10-year feasibility study, and that's going to include operation costs, because right now it's costing us $195,000 is what we budgeted this year for those operation costs. And that's the operations minus the revenue. Sorry, I've got those numbers in there. 119,000. Sorry, there. The arena budget operations. Sorry, yes, the difference is 195,000. The operations is 313,000. And the revenue is 119,000, so that's a difference of 195,000 coming from taxpayers. And are we getting, and with that, if we then say, like, do you have a number in your mind? Are we going to, because it's an unbudgeted repair. Although it's foolish to say it's unbudgeted, we knew that it was ancient arena, so that was disingenuous of us to not include. And when we didn't include, and when every previous council has not included, putting money there.
Well, I don't know. Because my understanding is there was $600,000 or $700,000 spent in the last 5 years when Mr. Current was there.
Quite a bit. I don't know if it would stick, so it'd be about $500,000 anyways, for sure.
So that money comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it was budgeted or not, that I don't know.
Then he got some grants and stuff too, for the lighting and stuff like that, I believe, so.
And I think we all agree that the floor has to be repaired. Somehow or another, and not the $50 or $50 one, $11,000 or something. It's gotta be fixed. But I think he was supposed to be getting us some idea of a cost on that.
Yeah, and you'll have a better idea with this discussion after you hear the report on June 6th. Like, you'll get a lot more information hearing it from those guys as well. Like, they're coming and they'll provide options and numbers and stuff for decision. But, so one question is, that $12,000 ceiling, it's a roll of the dice, but I'd be interested in hearing it from Simcoe with what they said, right? We did it last time and that was what, 4 years ago?
But it's not a long term, 4 years.
It's a band. It's a band.
But it does, but my thought on it, if you're gonna keep the arena, the facility, no matter what you do, you gotta fix the floor. Irregardless, you gotta fix the floor.
In this council's.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree. It's gotta be
But
done.
I do think that council needs to make a decision on which way they're going. Like, so staff need to know, you know what, we're gonna close it in 3 years, fine. Then we plan for that. Or you know what, we're going to make every effort of, continuing this old barn and be one of the oldest arenas in the province and be happy for what it serves. You know what, we serve, the beginners of skating and seniors men's league and just be happy for what it is. Don't try and make it into an NHL arena. You're never going to get AAA hockey there. It is what it is. And, be proud of what it serves and we just focus on that group. But if you're going to choose to keep it, I wouldn't go to any major big expenses by making it an NHL arena, size arena. No, but it is major, yeah. But I think you need to really, we're going one way or another. So staff know and the public know and just got to make the decision. This discussion's been going on for
It's gotta be
years.
made this term of council.
Yeah.
One way or the other.
And maybe one or two of the departments need to suffer for a year to fix it in the floor.
Well, it won't do that.
Why
You're
not?
gonna be doing catch up.
I don't think so.
But we have never had an ad hoc committee, like a fundraising committee, like we've never went that far. I think we need to make the decision, are we keeping it, not keeping it? If we're going to keep it, you know what, let's get an ad hoc committee and fundraise and try and pump and promote to fix, the floor. And go from there.
And my point is, if you don't fix the floor, pardon me, if you don't put ice in there, you still gotta fix the floor. You still gotta put boards in because you can't just leave it open.
So you'd be right now fixing the floor and the boards, you're in excess of $1 million.
Yeah, well, I don't want to I thought it was more than that, but I think we get some idea from somebody that knows a little bit about it.
And you'll know that those are good questions that you can probably ask on June 6th with somebody that's, from that industry, not just, our staff may know who deal with this stuff every day, but we're going to have a company in there that deals with this every day. They'll be able to provide a better, closer, realistic number.
Are they just looking at the floor? Are they looking at building?
I believe, we'll be talking about the floor.
But your question's valid, you know, the washrooms are old, the change rooms, they want to make changes there, like,
Yep, there's definitely upgrades throughout the ring. She's an old barn for sure. So there's definitely, you know, it is what it is, but there's definitely upgrades that need to be done. And, you know, I know our previous manager down there, he did a lot of the doors and stuff, did all the lighting. So like there's quite a, he did do a lot of upgrades in the change room, I believe, as well. So
Yeah, it's not like council has abandoned it. There has been budgeted items, for example, the foundation, when that report came out, I know the manager at that time had the foundation repaired, doors have been repaired, floors. Entranceways, new lighting, stuff like that. So some of the concerns that were easy to do, that were fixable and not huge money, they've been addressed, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's
And
not like
that's,
we've just
it was
abandoned.
close to, I think it was pretty close to $500,000 that we've spent over the last, you know, 2 years, keeping it going and upgrades and.
Is that, have you seen that report?
Yeah, that was from previous councils.
Have you seen it?
I've seen it
That
all.
was 2 councils ago, I think. or
Yeah,
something.
it was.
I just before, I just wanted to ask the question. So what was it that Jen Steen she wanted to change something in this notice?
He was saying that, we should break the discussion into 2 parts about what to do for 2023, 2024. Because we may find out that we can't have ice in there, and we do need to make a decision, because that's a very real option or a real possibility. And if that happens, what do we have year-round pickleball? Like, have that discussion and say, what are we doing for 2023, 2024? And then that committee would continue its work and look at the bigger picture and what are the needs, what do we need to do, whether there's feasibility, you know, the feasibility study for, you know, the number of anticipated users, or whether in fact we have far better service to our community by having a committee that, having a facility that's a multi-purpose facility. I mean, hockey's wonderful, but I have 6 kids with, you know, 2 of my kids, 4-H was the greatest thing that ever happened. 3 of my kids, soccer is the world to them. So, I mean, I think when we look at it, there's a lot of people and we've only got a small amount of money. I did the calculations. On the average household, there's $145 per tax year going into recreation. And that's $435,000 approximately coming from taxpayers to fund it. And $195,000 of that 434 is the arena. So is what's, you know, 35–40%, I guess that would be 40% in an arena actually serving the most people. But we don't have service standards or service goals, but it's an interesting discussion we need to have.
To you, Mayor, I just want to touch on what Troy said about, like, is Jennifer, like, we need to get Jennifer to just take the gloves off and try to find out how to fill that ice time, right, in the ballparks and stuff. And, you know, 15–20 years ago, you couldn't go to the ground without seeing the ball game. And you wouldn't have to go. And, you know, every weekend that arena was full of tournaments. You know, we don't have an off-peak price for ice as much as we have a peak hour price. So, I mean, you know, give Jennifer the okay to take the gloves off and just think outside the box how to fill that ice time up and then get it, you know, see what we can do with that money, right? Yeah.
Having said that, Centerton, 50% at least of the kids are already going to Baltimore. They've made that decision. My kids both ended up in Coburg because of the girls' hockey or because they're friends in high school. So people are making that decision, Mike, to go elsewhere. And certainly anyone living up in this area, has never gone to Grafton. They've always gone to Warkworth or Campbell or Hastings, I suppose.
Well, I think you're trying to get people that.
I think you'll make that June sixth, and if you make that, you know, $12,000 investment or whatever, and then you get this committee going and then determine the future of everything. Maybe. So, I don't know, June 6th will be
It's two different things.
I think it is.
Let me want the quick one here.
You know, I know you think we've got $11,000 is a lot, and it is a lot of money, but
I don't know if it's gonna work, is my bigger thing.
well, that's why we're bringing in the experts.
I think if we go back to our minutes, we asked them to come in with a quote on the X-ray. If I'm not mistaken, but I think that's what we're supposed to come back on.
Yes, so that will.
Not the liquid stuff.
They're coming with a whole bunch of different
I
things.
think they're gonna come with options.
Yes.
So it should be, get your questions ready. It'll be a good opportunity to ask those questions to those guys. On the 6th.
So I seconded Mary Catherine's motion.
Which was.
That's right there.
Okay. All in favor? Not opposed?
Hold on.
Get your hands out of your pocket.
So I like the motion that she's got because I like what she's getting at, which is let's get off the pot here and decide what we're gonna do. What I would like to know is, could we defer it until after the 5th, Mary Catherine, to if Simcoe presents us with something else, because basically it's a crapshoot when you put that stuff in. It could work, it might not work. But for $11,000, even if it buys you 1 year, then I still want to see this go through. I just
do too.
I just don't think that realistically, if my way of thinking, if this seal doesn't work, there is no ice this year, unless you're gonna put it in with it leaking, because there's no quick fix. Simcoe's booked for the year, I'll tell you that now. They've got projects that are booked a year in advance to break up floors and everything. Those boards and glass and everything will be custom made. They're not an NHL rink, that's a smaller rink. That has to be all custom made. That's not something that you buy within a week or two. So if the rink seal doesn't work, you know, I'd like to ask Simcoe when they come here, what's our options? If they can bust up the floor or whatever, and will that work or not, or whatever?
So are you looking for an amendment?
Well, I'd like to defer a little bit. I understand, I agree with everything you're trying to do there, but it's the timeline. I think
Well,
originally you were trying to get it done by August so that we can decide whether or not, but I think with something as serious like this, if you talked about going out to the public and everything like that, let's make sure that when we present it to the public, they can tell us how they feel too. And I like your option. It's never been that option before, because it's always been, it's either the rink is alive or the rink is dead. I like your option, which is if it's dead, we don't call it it's dead. This is what we're looking at for the future. That guess what? Yeah, the arena's not going to be there, but we're looking at this and people are like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm okay for that. They don't like to hear, oh, the arena's not, and that's it.
well, and I'm thinking the point of doing it now rather than later. It changes the mandate depending on what we hear on June 6th. And that was already sort of worked into mine that at the second meeting, we were going to look at those as options, but that's all just sort of background thinking, but it's getting ahead of the issue instead of getting, you know, that we're saying as a council, yeah, we're willing to look at this. We're willing to have the tough decision. We want to be out ahead of this because we may well, I know we've got everybody's got their fingers crossed, but I'm 10 gallons a day, unless that x-ray really shows us something good, that's a big leak.
10 gallons a day, what was it leaking 4 or 5 years ago?
That's a good question.
I don't know. Think of.
But that's under pressure. So right now, it's not leaking.
It's not leaking at all, but when
It's like a drip now, instead of when it's under pressure, big pressure like that, it's like, you know, like your garden hose and it's.
that's where we're losing 10 pounds a day. Or
When
10
it's under
gallons.
under pressure, it's running.
Yes, yes.
When it's sitting now and there's no pressure in the system,
Yeah,
it's just a drip, right? But getting back to what her point is, I mean, it's a roll of the dice, but I would like to wait until Simcoe comes here and tells us something. Maybe
But we
something's
need the
changed.
committee anyway.
Well, we
It
do.
just changes slightly the mandate.
I think it changes a lot of stuff. But I don't think you can make a good decision in 6 or 8 weeks. You've got to take a long time to think about this and not think about it, but get the data and the information so that we can make a wise
So then
decision.
let's get started. Like, what's the advantage of not getting started on this?
You know, I think you need to add the libraries and the city centers in there.
Well, that would be in the
Do it
great,
all together,
great, Mary Catherine calls it the great Grafton Community Center.
you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I do think it's a much bigger thing because it does tie into the office space. Like, that's another option that can be into these kinds of things. But so long as we don't talk about it, we're not going to accomplish anything. I mean, past that, yeah.
So where are we at?
Yeah, I think it's,
Well, we
when
go
do we
vote.
start the committee? Do we say, yes, we're going? Because it's still gonna take time for staff to prepare the mandate for the committee, for all of that to happen.
Yeah, realistically, that's gonna take a couple months. We've got a CAO that's leaving and we haven't got anybody to just pick that up. Pat's gonna be training
I
people.
know, so what happens on June 6th anyway?
Well, in June 6th, if Simcoe comes here and tells us that they are relatively sure that that's gonna work, I would say, okay, that's great. Let's buy it for the year and proceed with what you're doing, but extend the timeline. So we're not trying to rush to August, because if they tell us $11,000 will buy us, then I like what John's saying. So it's slow. We're gonna take that and we're gonna make a committee and go out and get the information so that next year we've got, well, actually, it'll be before next year, it'll be more like December or January, that would have to be a budget item. If it's decided you're keeping it, RFPs have to go out well in advance so that you can book with Simcoe and get the boards made and this and that, because that all happens in like April to August, right?
And then if you do, your deadline should be right around spring for any kind of decision for the sake of the kids, because the kids have those spring tryouts too. So you want to give them ample opportunity to go to a neighboring township to try out for their hockey teams if you're going to close the arena. No, so I think spring should be the deadline for a decision, in fairness to the public and the kids.
I think
Yeah.
that, I'm happy, and that's where I started my discussion after talking with Jennifer, to say, right now, in the short term, we're looking at the options for 2023, 2024. And continue this committee with the same mandate that I'm saying, but the other parts of it have a longer range, which is
Basically.
Well, I think that's what we're all saying, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, in a.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say that we want to break the recommendation into 2 reports, one on the options for 2023, 2024, and the future rebuild or replace. I suppose, can I add that then, just in writing, since I was, no, I can't, because that's the notice of motion that was posted. That was the point of posting it.
So can I make it an amendment to the motion?
I think that would work with it.
Okay, I'll make that amendment.
That would have the 2 reports, the options of 2023, 2024, and the future rebuild or replace.
That would get us through to June to see what the information we get.
So in regards to all your timelines in there about committees and meeting in July and August and all that, that's staying there, or that's?
No.
No, that was not part of the motion anyway.
Okay.
You are the one, I said, I get to go to one counselor and I picked you and you said, well, I would need to know more details on what you think.
Well, I do, because, no, but I agree with everything you're saying, but the deadline is like Matt. In my world with the arenas, Matt would have to know by probably August if he's buying that stuff and putting it in, because he starts up in September.
No, long, and
I
the
think
kids
so.
want to go along before that.
No, I'm just saying that we are gonna have to give him permission to buy it, he has to order it, but the deadline for him to put that stuff in is like August or early September.
I think even in June.
Well, if he knows that, that's fine, but he's still not gonna put it in until then. You're not gonna put it in the summer to let it run too. So it's a possibility it doesn't work, and then we're gonna be plan B with whatever Simcoe tells us, and if we're jackhammering or doing whatever that, and what that cost is gonna cost, right?
That's what we wanna do for the property.
That's what
I just
you
came
wanna
up
do,
with thinking we
jackhammer.
can do the X-ray, because it's probably sure that it's gonna get.
Well, ask him that, because in my past knowledge, when they jackhammer concrete and it starts vibrating pipes that are 60 years old, you start popping leaks all over the place. And I don't think they like to do that, but let's ask them, maybe something's changed, right?
I've done it in that floor about 3 or 4 times, so I think I can 3 spots there the other day.
So I have.
But doesn't it make sense if you have all this stuff that's in there that's that old, you don't want to be shaking everything, because if it's already in,
And what would the pipes be?
You know, good enough that it's like pipes that are leaking.
Well, what are the pipes?
So if they're not leaking, they'll take some shaking.
Well, what are the pipes?
it's 60 years old.
You guys are not experts.
No, I'm not, that's what I'm not saying. So
I know.
let Simcoe tell us that, right?
And what is it copper piping back then, or what did they use? Hey, Joe, Mayor Logo, you just made your point.
You know, when people do the flooring for a bathroom, you know, when people do the flooring for a bathroom and it's a loop, that's what it is. It's just loops all the way. in.
60 years ago.
Well, I'm guessing it's plastic. I don't know. I've never ever ripped up one. It's 60 years old.
What do you think the other, what do you think the dirty one you go with? They're plastic too, you know?
Oh, anything in my time was plastic, but back then it would be cast iron.
We didn't have plastic. 50 years ago, there was no such thing as plastic.
Okay, so I would make the amendment.
And the amendment is that staff and Simcoe implement options for the report on options 2023 and 2020.
And
That this that the committee be established and that the first report would be the 2023-2024 options. But that we start thinking ahead to the future rebuild or replace.
this is
I think that's, are you okay with that?
So when you mean rebuild, replace, you mean
the
refurbish,
future of the
refurbish
building,
or replace?
whatever the plan,
Yeah.
the committee.
And we gotta get the committee and everyone together too.
Yeah, which is going to take quite a bit.
I think it's gonna take quite a
And,
bit of time.
and the,
Well, we do have to, if we really are pressed in our procedural areas in 17.2, we can just appoint someone without.
I'm still got the shakes from the last ad hoc committee.
Well, that's what I was gonna mention. We said to ourselves, we learned a lesson from the SDR one, where we have a very controversial issue where it's very polarized and you got a lot of people yes, a lot of people no. Gotta be very careful when you're going to a ad hoc thing, because you're gonna get this again, right? Where everybody wants to prove their point. I'm sure Mike would like to be the chair of that committee too, again, so. You got a hockey helmet, right?
Yeah, I think we have to take, yeah.
It has to be.
But I think we are all agreeing that this council has to make a decision,
Yeah.
moving ahead.
And the committee can just be our council, but dedicated meetings on it. Yeah, and we might be better to have this committee just be us. I don't know, it's an option.
Bring in the experts, with their opinions, and then make the decisions after that. Because it is difficult. More people you put on a committee, the more difficult it is.
I like that idea better, because ultimately it's gonna be us five that are gonna make that decision. I don't mind if you have experts come in, Simcoe, and somebody that builds something and gives us this, that, and everything, so that we have all the options in front of us.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna make an
The
informed
public
decision.
can come out to those.
Yeah.
And we can get the public skaters or the figure skaters and get their opinion on it, and Okay. We gotta read this back.
So Deputy Mayor Stover made an amendment, but you don't have a seconder.
Okay, I'll second.
Oh, I
You want-
friendly amendment. It's the seconder. I don't care as long as somebody is.
Michael second, you second it, Mike? And who was the mover?
The mover was Deputy Mayor Stover.
Okay.
And there was Councilor Ainsworth. The amendment carried. The amendment, main motion,
The amendment carries, we can vote on the main motion as amended.
I think that we-
Okay,
I think you're.
so we're voting on the amendment.
Can you read it?
The
back
amended
right now?
motion.
so the amended motion is that, the motion be amended. And that staff and Circle bring back a report on options for the 2024 season. And then second part of that is that, we look at the future, rebuilding or replacing. And that, and then that's where I lost, because I don't know if you want the committee themselves or.
I think we're at the deciding stages. We're not there yet.
Yes, that would be, yeah. So let's forget about that.
Well, but I'm sure it's something that we'll look at in the fall.
Yes, we will. I don't think we have to wait till the fall. I don't think we have to wait till the fall. We can't wait till the fall.
Can't wait, and that's why I think we
No,
do
but I
it.
mean, the 2024, like the next year, let's get through what we need to do this year.
That's why
And then.
you made your wise amendment that we're
Yes.
gonna look at 2023, 2024.
Yes.
All in favor? Carried. That was moved by Mary Catherine and seconded by John. You want to read the motion as amended?
So your amendment that you just passed,
Yes.
your motion, your main motion will be amended. With that
Breaks down
included.
into the two
Okay.
Yes.
recommend.
All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Who's is
I
that?
noticed mine was a lot faster than the others.
That's mine.
No, it isn't. Put that right there.
Okay. Okay, Mary Catherine, you have your share. Who's going next? Councilor Booth.
Nothing at this time.
I have a couple of things. And they were to do with proclamations. I see you have one on there. Just want to make sure I got them all, because it worked quite a few of them. National Public Works Week is next week. Is that one of the proclamations?
Yes, that's on there.
The next one is the paramedics is next week as well.
We not passed that, previous.
I was,
Maybe
maybe we did.
not, sorry.
National Indigenous Month is June. And June 21st is the National Indigenous Peoples' Day.
And we're making, that was going to up to the three of the day. We enable and we're going to.
So should we continue that as well? Okay. Pride Month is June. We ever done any Pride stuff before?
We don't, did we play a flag? We may have.
I don't know if we did a flag or not. I know the school did.
I would suggest we have a flag.
Yeah, I
Maybe we did.
we'll check. We'll check. If we don't have a flag, we will elect to get a flag and we'll be able to fly at our major community centers.
And the last thing I wanted to talk a little bit more about was climate change. HKPR, the health unit, is really getting involved in this. I was kind of surprised, but when you start thinking about some of the things that they're mentioning, the illnesses that we have today are going to get much worse, and they're going to create new issues. Exposure to heat, cold, breathing and respiratory, food, water, and borne diseases are much more likely. Mental health will be affected. By 2050, 3 times as many days above 30 degrees than there was in 2019. I don't know how many we had, but if we had 20, I believe we're going to say maybe 60. Much more higher risk to exposure of sun rays, ultraviolet rays, a longer warm season, which will greatly increase the ticks and Lyme disease. By 2050, the rainfall that we get will be 50 to 60% higher than it is now. And by that, I mean, if you were to get an inch now on a day, a typical day, you'll get almost 2 inches instead. 1.5, 1.6. And
That's a lot of doom and gloom.
well, it's not doom and gloom, but we gotta be, you know, I'm not gonna have to worry about it, but my kids and my grandkids are gonna worry about that big stuff. And so we're looking at stuff and designing stuff and
Trees are huge, don't have
Trees.
so much concrete,
all
more
of
grass.
Making our air conditioned facilities available and to our
Yeah.
that
residents during the summer.
emergency stuff, absolutely. And
And you know,
$180,000 trucks rather than $300,000.
Yeah.
That might help. That might have a lot to do with
no, absolutely.
that type
And you know,
of stuff.
the other thing that people really have to understand is like natural health. Get away from the pharmaceutical stuff. I mean, some of it helps, but mostly it's just a Band-Aid. Like, look for that natural health stuff. There's so many things out there that you can take an active, like dandelions in your front yard. One of the healthiest things that you,
Are you eating them?
yeah.
Go on the beauty
Not eating, it's drinking.
Natural cures. Natural cures, because I'm telling you, all that stuff that you're talking about, is natural stuff that they, you know, to cleanse yourself and to purify your blood and your vessels and everything.
I can remember eating dandelion salads. Oh my God.
Well, your father was the original,
Yeah.
not panic, go organic.
Yes, I remember that. That used to be a great joke.
Uh,
So he's like these legends right there.
well, good.
You're eating dandelion.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor Stover. I gotta get the subject off.
I am planning on attending the county courthouse on Friday for an announcement by, the Honorable NPP Pacini. And, I think I have a little bit of a insight through you, Mayor Lobo. I can't remember what it was at the moment. Affordable housing. And, I'm planning on getting there. The other thing is, and I forgot to bring them, and, with all the doom and gloom coming down, I'd like us all to plant sunflowers, and I'll sign you all up in the sunflower contest. All right, so I will bring them. on Wednesday. Yeah, I'll give you some shade. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Ainsworth.
I have an update. Council asked us to, talk to Lower Trent about the levy that we sent them, and this was their answer. So, I'm gonna read it because it's too, so you know exactly what you're saying about it let me check it. Okay. So as discussed at our May 11th Lower Trent Conservation Board meeting, the changes in Bill 23 affected the natural heritage review that was paid for by the opponents, not the provincial levy. Part of the municipal levy. Planning comments on natural hazards and wetlands are still active, and that is the aspect paid for by the levy. Our review are through, and the planning files are still required to move through the CA. The natural heritage portion of the reviews was often not present. The workload continues. So ultimately, this changes are increasing the cost to the developers and the municipalities for the necessary pre-review. So it doesn't look like anything's gonna change. And
Nice to hear the things.
Yeah,
so I don't know, Madam Clerk, can you clarify some of that, what you were talking about there?
So some of the conservation authorities levy is paid by, partly by the province and partly by the municipality. The majority of it is paid by the municipality. So what she's saying there is the changes that have come through for Bill 23, your levy is still going to be required. And there's not going to be much of a change because what the province paid for isn't what was being paid for by the province. We were paid for it. So
That's your answer.
Thank you, Mike. That's the ultimate thing.
And take natural stuff.
The actual stuff, okay. Okay, we're gonna move on to number 14.1, bylaw 54, 2023, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council session held on Tuesday, May 16, 2023. Be resolved that bylaw number 54, 2023, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular session of council held on Tuesday, May 16, 2023, be read, deemed, and passed the 16th day of May 2023. Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? That's carried. Adjournment. Be resolved, the regular council of Tuesday, May 16th, 2023, we adjourned at 9:07.
9:07.
Hooper the seconder. Moved by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. All in favor?
What's this proclamation that we didn't talk about? How late is it?
It's 9:00.
All in favor?
He doesn't have to stay up for